scioli diede gran dolor, lo qual facciamo per amor. A lui fossi io di penna,
Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry for the slight delay in beginning the stream, but I can see that we've got at least Biscuits here. This is good. Hello, welcome, Biscuits. Biscuits, it's my intention that you should join the assembly hall so I can pull you into TV Voice. What we're going to do here with the stream is basically every so often, like every couple of seasons of Alchemy League, if somebody's been doing a good job of helping us out with maps and trying to help the community when they can, there's not really, we're a volunteer organization. I can't pay people, to help me out. I can't afford it. The community doesn't have resources, and that can be good things too, because it sort of attracts a certain type of person to help out with the community. it's a different kind of meaning when people volunteer their time to help out versus if basically somebody is your employee. And that's not what we do here. That, you know, they're not employees. I mean, yes, there's a little bit of money that flows through our community that, you know, kind of gets people excited about winning and stuff like that. But in general, like, this community could not work if people didn't volunteer. So because I don't really have the money to pay people for helping us out with maps, the best thing that I can do for them, which is actually maybe in some respects better than money, is I can share some of the script compilers that I've been working on. So, or that I have worked on that kind of belong to our community, and I'd like to get our community working on that. There are people who are way smarter than I am, that are much better with programming and such, who could probably enhance the value added by these script compilers. These compilers can do some pretty wonderful things. And the nice thing about these compilers is that, unlike the map scripts, which when you upload the map script to, let's say, the DE workshop, it becomes property of Microsoft, and then Microsoft grants everybody the right to use that map script. It kind of helps them out for legal reasons and stuff, so, you know, it's why they do it. But it's not very friendly for creators. But the good news about the compilers is you use the compiler, because the scripting engine is very, very primitive, right? A lot of people think, oh, why would you make a computer code that would write another computer code? It's because the scripting engine is very limited in what it can do. So if you want to be able to do some advanced things in random map scripting, you basically have to pre-compile those instructions using a separate coding language of some kind, and then the map script can read that within its limitations. So this advanced methods in random map scripting video is, it's not really necessarily pertaining to Alchemy League Season 6. I mean, we're just at the end of Alchemy League Season 6 here. So that's why we've got all the overlays for it. But this is ultimately an advanced methods in random map scripting workshop. And so the idea is that we're going to take one or two scripters that have done well for us in terms of helped us out and been supportive of the community, and we're going to give them access to some of these advanced compilers that'll kind of turbocharge their scripting capabilities. And there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. I'm not saying that these compilers are like the best thing ever, but if you can get good with working with these compilers, and you can make map scripts with these compilers, then you can do a lot more. And that's what we're going to offer. So Biscuits is in the assembly hall. I'm going to drag him into TV Voice. We got one other guy that I think we're sort of waiting on, but I'll do a little bit more introduction. Let's see. Come on, Biscuits. All right. It looks like we got him. Biscuits, hello and welcome.
Hello, hello.
All right. So I'm going to turn him up just a little bit so you guys can hear him better. And so this workshop, you know, and I'll also turn the volume. I'll turn up the master volume too. So this workshop is here for the benefit of the two map suppliers that said that they could make it. Biscuits was one of them. If the other guy can't make it, we'll just go ahead with Biscuits. But just know that Biscuits has the power to stop me whenever he wants and say, whoa, 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 hold up. If you're in the chat, you could say hold up, but I may not notice it as easily. Cosum Tossa says, I'm in the chat, no voice for me, wife is in company, that would be Rapture. Alright, so Biscuits. We are going to go over the Alchemy AoE community website first. And this is in the video description, so I just, knowing nothing about HTML, but the reason that I'm going to show this is not just to shamelessly promote our community, although it's, I worked hard on it and I want people to know about this website, even if the AI was doing most of the coding. But the reason that I'm sharing it, and the reason that it's relevant to advanced methods in random map scripting, is because even though, we're doing kind of advanced stuff, you still got to have the basics out of the way. So we've got some interactive buttons here. We've got the scripting guide, constant list, terrains list, game mechanics, and the icon creator. These last two we're probably not going to need, but the scripting guide, the constants list, and the terrain list, we probably should have that handy. And what I like to do is I like to just basically take this scripting guide right here, and you can center click on that and it'll bring up another tab, and this is Zetnus's guide right here. And ideally, you know, maybe we get the website to the point where the contents of this entire scripting guide are somewhere stored in HTML, and Zetnus is a collaborator. We've talked about it in the past. I think Zetnus is interested in that, because it could be really cool to be able to navigate and click on links and build a whole website around it. But I actually didn't know that you could kind of host a website for free using GitHub, which is basically what we're doing. I guess they're just trying to conquer everything in terms of information and knowledge. All right, so oh, okay. So welcome to Rapture is in the chat. He's not able to join the voice channel. Well, thank you for coming. Welcome to Rapture. I will send you the same invitation link that I sent Biscuits. I may not be able to help you as much, but I will still try. So if you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the chat. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry that it was not explicitly communicated that we're going to try to get people into a voice channel. Cookie Pirate says, that looks fantastic in desktop format. Needs some fixing for mobile, but I'm optimistic it will be viable. I hope so. I mean, it's very simple right now. We'll get a group of people together. So anyway, so the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get the repository first. So I've shown you the website. Now we're going to go over here to GitHub, and we're going to come over to... It's in a repository called show more. RM function library. So that's where we got to go. And I'm going to go over here to settings, and I'm going to go over here to collaborators, and I'm going to put my password in. One sec, guys. And I've entered the password. So you can see that we kind of have it's actually a very small list of collaborators that are part of this repository. It is written in the GNU Octave language. And so now I'm going to add people. And I'm going to add welcome to Rapture. Oh, shoot. I can't remember which one he is. I think it's 415. He can actually, if you're in the chat, welcome to Rapture, just confirm which one of these guys it is. We'll do Biscuits first. So Biscuits is Mighty Space Fruit. Oh, Mighty Space...
All one word.
Fruit. There we go. And we'll add him. And then we will add welcome to Rapture next. Oops. So we'll add... So go ahead and accept Biscuits. You should get the invitation through GitHub. And we're going to do welcome to Rapture 415. I think that's the right one. Actually, you know what? I can just invite all of them. I'm not going to invite all of them. I'm pretty sure it's 415. And if it's not, then I'll just rescind the invitation and invite the correct one. Okay. So now... let's assume that Biscuits has accepted the invitation. What we're going to do is, and I'll kind of show you where we've got this set up already. And we haven't really gone into hardcore mode yet, although I probably should do the display share. There we go. So you can sort of see my screen and see all the different repositories that we've got. I'll also share how I have my random map scripts folder set up. Guys, remember that basically this location right here, this files, C program files, Steam, Steam apps, common, AOE2DE, resources, common, random app scripts. That is the folder that when you put your stuff into that folder, if you put an RMS file into that folder, it will show up in the game. You can select it from the menu. You can select it in the scenario editor or in skirmish mode. You can put other supporting files in there. Now I'm pretty sure that I've gotten this main folder cleared out. Yeah, so I don't have any of the scripts in here right now, but we're gonna change that. But what you'll notice in this presentation, the reason that I bring that up is because we're gonna have .m files in here, and we're gonna have .ods files within this random map scripts folder. And it'll be sorted by, there'll be some folder that's basically your map name, and it'll have at least 3 different files in it, because this compiler is in and of itself a script file with .m extension, and then it'll very often read spreadsheets and such and it'll interpret that information, and then it'll put that into the .rms file. And of course, the .rms file is last but certainly not least, because that is the actual script file that the game will recognize if it is in this folder. So what we want is we want chem rm function library. We basically want this folder to show up, because these are all of the different functions that I've written over the years and kind of have written. Like I said, I'm not a professional programmer at all, but you know, we've got all kinds of different functions in here that can do all kinds of different things. So most of them are not important, but there's like 4 core ones that are extremely important. And so basically what you need, and I'm going to show you how to do this, is when you go in and you download that, or you clone that repository with the random map function library, it needs to go such that this folder is in the random map scripts folder and adjacent to chem random map scripts folder, just like this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete this file just like that. And actually, that may not produce the effect that I want, now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm going to delete it. Just bear with me for one second here. So we're going to go over to GitHub Desktop now. And if you guys are involved with the community and you've made random maps for us before, then you are familiar with GitHub Desktop. This is what we use for everything. So this is chem tournament function library. And basically what's happened is we're selecting the repository that we're going to work on, and we go over here to like changes, and oh, that's tournament function library. Sorry, we want RM function library, random map function library, and it should, okay, yeah. So it says it can't find it. Now I think we're just going to go in and we're going to say remove. All right, just like that, so that this screen will appear as though you have never downloaded or added chem function library at all, right? Now, in theory, if you have access to it, not only, you know, you've got your other repositories in here. Some of you are involved with preparing the specifications, for example. And obviously, all of you are involved with the random map scripts repository as well, and we all have different branches in that repository. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another repository here, and we're going to go and we're going to I think it's add an existing repository, and we're going to choose a path, and we want to go into the random map scripts folder, and just like that, and we want to select this folder and say add repository. No. All right, let's see if I remember how to do this. So we're going to clone a repository, maybe. Here we go. That looks right. So clone repository. So we are going to select the RM function library, and then we have to. So we're going from GitHub.com, and then we're going to go to a local path here, and we're going to say choose, and we're going to choose random map scripts, and then I guess we're just going to go in this folder right here. And then we're going to say clone, and it should clone chem random map function library to that. So now, when we go back to our random map scripts folder, indeed here it is. Okay, so here's the function, and we got all these, or here's the folder, and we got all these functions with their folders organized in this very haphazard way that wasn't originally intended to be shared with anybody, but I decided to open it up because I know that you guys are really smart and creative, and if you have access to this, and as long as I have access to the people that I can trust to have access to this, then we can always keep this as like a special thing for our own guild to work with. So that's the big rule. These guys have agreed not to share the contents of this repository because it's quite valuable. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but this repository can do things that the maps, the creators of maps that are featured in S tier level tournaments wish that they could do but can't. So they just have to be super creative to have their work featured. This will remove obstacles. It's not going to mean that you're going to be a successful map scripter, like you're gonna get all of your work featured. Believe me, I've tried. But I just don't know anybody well enough, I guess, or they didn't like my ideas, or well, that's kind of another long sob story. Hello, the otter one. Where I went off and I started the alchemy community because I thought, well, let's really spell out exactly what we need for competitions, because I'm tired of throwing my heart and soul, pouring all of this time into making this map, and then they're like, sorry, we think you got too much gold in this location, and yes, we could fix it in 5 minutes, but we're going to choose this other map instead. Like, I was like, oh no, we're not doing that. So I decided to host competitions instead of just making maps. So because I'm doing that, I'm not really focused on using all of these functions, so let's set up other people to use them and kind of keep them within our guild. That's the philosophy. Okay, so we've got RM function library all set up here. We've got random map scripts all set up here, but of course it's empty because we are not really working with the repository. But what we are going to do now is we're going to go and get ourselves a template file. So we've got this all cloned in, biscuits and or welcome to Rapture. You guys stop me if you failed to get to this point. If you did not get RM function library, let me know, because you're going to need that. There's no, as far as I know, there's no API or anything like that. So you got this here, biscuits?
I got it, yeah.
All right, awesome. And welcome to Rapture is, I haven't seen anything from him, so I'm going to assume that he has it as well. Okay, so with this being here, we're going to go and we're actually going to look into the random map scripts folder. Okay, good. He's got it. And now we're going to come over and we are going to go back to GitHub Desktop. And we're going to change this over to the random map scripts. And we're going to go from the empty branch. I don't know, whatever branch you happen to leave this on is basically whatever branch it's going to be. People have all kinds of different branches, right? It helps us sort of organize things a little bit better. I'm going to go over here to the templates and examples branch of that. And when you do that, and this is the reason why we use this, is stuff magically appears. So now all of a sudden we have 4 random map scripts that were essentially hidden. And that's why we do it this way, is so that you don't have a gazillion different maps that everybody else made. We've got a few different examples in here. We've got like Inverse Arabia. We've got how to do player forests as objects. We have how to force a map to be sudden death. Bazadrone and I worked on that. But we're going to go over here to template, and we're going to take this folder, and we're not actually going to look inside of it yet, and we're just going to highlight it and hit Control-C to copy it, and then we're going to jump up out of this, and we're going to paste this right here in our random map scripts folder, actually outside of chem random map scripts. We don't want that in there because we're just kind of working on a little private project first. We don't need this showing up on the public repository that's kind of within our guild. Alright, so we're just going to paste this template right there, and I'm going to hit F2 and I'm going to rename it like Advanced RMS Example, something like that. Okay, so we've got that there, and now we're going to go back to GitHub Desktop, and just for good housekeeping purposes, so that we don't get confused, we're going to change this back to empty so that we don't have any unneeded scripts showing up when we go into the scenario editor. All right, and that actually reminds me, if you haven't booted up the game yet, let's make sure that we do that. Actually, yeah, boot up the game, but don't go into the scenario editor just yet. So we're going to get this booted up, and while that's booting up, we're going to go back to the folder, and we're going to double-click RMS example. And what we require for Alchemy League is that the script be named the same thing as the folder going forward. Because if the script is selected for use in the season of Alchemy League, the way that the map auto downloader works for the players is it goes and looks for the folder, and then it will find the file that is a .rms file in that folder of the same name, and then it will transfer that over, and it'll basically zip that up, and it'll let the players auto download it. So I'm going to change all of these to Advanced RMS Example. Note that they have different extensions because they are different types of files. So this .m file here is a GNU Octave file. This is the high-level programming language with more of a graphical interface. This .ods file, this is a spreadsheet file. This is for object autoscriber, object generation, and the .rms is obviously the map script that we are working with. And we will probably, in this tutorial, we'll go into all 3 of them. So I'm going to highlight all three, and then I'm going to hit F2, and I'm going to say advanced RMS example.rms. Okay, very good. So now we've got these three different files here. Once they are renamed, then you can go into editors in the game, and you can say create scenario, and it should appear properly as advanced RMS tutorial. So we'll just let that think for a moment. I'm glad that the Otter one is interested in random map scripting. I try to get all you guys interested in random map scripting.
Hey, I got a bunch of hills, looks like.
You got a bunch of hills. Excellent. That is what is left over from the example. So we go into advanced RMS example, and we're going to show the bunch of hills that that Biscuits is talking about. So here we've got all of these hills. Let's see if we can figure out exactly why all of these hills are here. So we're going to go into, now we're going to open up this script file, and we're going to see what's in here. What's the damage control? What's going on? Why are all of these hills appearing? And we're going to bring that over here, and we're just going to say something like this. All right, and we're going to call it advanced RMS example. All right, and a sample random map script by your name, and then today's date, whatever today's date is, the 21st. Okay, so we got some basic stuff in here. Maybe you care about it, maybe you don't. This is the trade cart disabling thing for team games. That's required in the Alchemy League spec. This occlusion mode rule change is pretty important. None of these are really advanced stuff. Like, you could do this without having access to the compilers. But I like to keep these around because they can be pretty handy. I like to put this building blocker around, for instance. Like, if you saw a spec that required unbuildable dirt terrain, let's say, and you're like, okay, I'm going through my list of terrains. There's DLC Bogland, there's DLC Quicksand, there is DLC Rock, right? All those different terrain types are inherently unbuildable, but the spec requires dirt terrain to be unbuildable. What you can do is, in this configuration, you can place this object, this blocker 1654, all over the place on dirt terrain, and it will prevent it from being buildable. It will basically change the property of that terrain to be unbuildable because these objects will be blocking building. The objects cannot be attacked by units, and but they can still be walked over by units. So that's why I like to keep this around, is in case there's like a situation where I want to make some area of the map unbuildable, I can flood it with this object 1654. But that's not really the purpose of this tutorial, right? And then we've got other sections, and I'll show this in general. You guys may be seeing some things. People like to set things up different ways, and they got different ideas about how to do things, but this actually was not my idea. But it's still a very good idea, so I'm going to show it to you. So what you've got here is, this might not look very impressive, right? You've got a single line of create elevation 3. It's targeting the dirt terrain. As we know from the basics of RMS, elevation happens after land generation. So basically what this command will do is it'll go through your map and it'll try to find all available dirt terrain, and then it will elevate this number of tiles of it, and then we've got a different number of tiles being elevated depending on the map size, and then it will elevate 100 clumps of it. Oops. And it will set scale by groups, which means that it will increase the number of clumps that it tries to elevate depending on the map size. But unfortunately, you can't scale like the amount of tiles that are being elevated. You can only scale the number of different tiles that are being elevated, if that makes sense. So you basically can't scale the size of the pie depending on how big the diameter of the pie is, but you can scale the number of slices. That's kind of how elevation generation works. It's very weird. And you also have to put this enable balanced elevation in here somehow, because apparently back in the day elevation was inherently balanced to the south edge of the map, and they only recently fixed it, and they added this to opt into the new, more random behavior. But what I wanted to tell you is, very often in like terrain generations, you could have like, hundreds or thousands of these. And you can break it into different sections. And what I like to do is, rather than going through and selecting this row and hitting, Control / and Visual Studio Code to comment it out and Control / to uncomment it back, you can define a certain area that is named what you are going to be doing. And then you say if that definition. And what happens is that if I, for instance, were to comment out this definition, elevation effects is no longer true. So this line of code and, hypothetically, any number of other lines of code after it within the same if statement will also be commented out. So this allows you to perform a block comment very easily just by commenting out a single line. So now, after commenting that out, I can go over here to the RMS and hit generate and confirm that the elevation does not appear. So there we go. I've shown you guys kind of the basics about how the script is set up, I think. The final thing that I want to mention is I actually do want these elevation effects back in here, right? Is we've got all of these different, well, we've got two things actually I want to show you. So the first thing that you need to note about the structure of this script, which must be preserved, is that your land generation always has to go last. I'm sorry guys, that's just how it is. I know that it's popular to arrange these in the order that you make the script, and older scripts, will generally have land generation at the top, just beneath player setup. But the truth is that the scripting engine will always do these different bannered sections in the same order, regardless of where they appear in the map script itself. So it will always go player setup, land generation, elevation generation, terrain generation, cliff generation, objects generation. Actually, connections is before objects, but you get the idea. So even if you put land generation down here first, it will still do this first before elevation generation. Okay, so the reason that you need to put land generation last is because of this line of code right here. And if you use these compilers, or at least if you use the land generation portion of the compiler, you must have this land auto-scribe text here. This tells the compiler where to place all of the lands that it has generated. And we'll go into that .m file, and you will see this in a moment. But basically, if this is not here, what will happen is it will look for land generation, and it will just put everything immediately underneath the land generation. If you have another section underneath this land auto-scribe, let's say your terrain generation is down here, it will delete your terrain generation and replace it with just this vanilla land generation. So basically, what it does is when it first scans your script file, it will identify this line of code right here and everything above it, and it will save that because it recognizes it as something that you created, and then it will go in and it will compute all of these lands that you requested, and then when it goes at the end to write the script back, it will tack this on at the top, and then it will tack this onto the bottom, and then it will write all of that back to the file. So it's very important that this file is readable and writable when the script generator is, while the compiler is running. So make sure that you don't hit this generate button on the map while the compiler is running, because if you do, then it'll be fine for a while. But if you happen to hit this generate map button at the exact same time that the script is trying to write, it'll get a fault, and that the compiler is trying to write, it'll get a fault, and then it won't write successfully, and then your script file will be empty. And then if you go to run it again without realizing what happened, then it'll assume that you started with an empty script, and it'll wipe all of your data. So it's very, very, very rare that something like that would happen. You have to be not thinking. But it has happened to me a few times before, but this was before I was using GitHub. So just be careful about that. Make sure that it's done running before you hit this generate button, and you should be fine. It's very, very rare. You're probably not going to lose all of your information as long as you're not like an idiot spamming that button. Okay, so we talked about giving it a chance to figure out what all these need to be. It basically, these are all, in case you guys didn't know, these are all auto-computed, right? Land auto-scribe. I did not write these. And maybe you could do some situation where you could tell it like a starting point and an ending point, but this was developed back in the day when I had tens of thousands of lands, and that was how I made maps at the time. But I've since gotten a little bit better at making maps with fewer lands because your file sizes can get very, very large, and you can potentially have too many lands for your own good. And if your file size is too massive, then people are not going to wait in the lobby to play your map. They're going to go off and do something else. So it's kind of stupid and somewhat unfortunate that there's such a limitation on file size. I think it's like between 2 and 2.5 megabytes. The game starts to really slow down when it comes to reading and transferring your script. So try to keep that in mind. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need begin objects autoscribe and end objects autoscribe. So this is pertaining to our objects autoscriber, and basically any object information that comes from the spreadsheet is going to get spit out right there. And obviously we have to have an end tag for it because it's not the last thing in the map. There's stuff that comes after it. Okay, so I kind of have explained all of that. Let's kind of talk about what we have here. It looks like what we've got in this random map script. Well, actually, let me ask, does anybody have any questions before we move on?
I'm good.
Excellent. So Biscuits is all set, and he is the one keeping me honest in the chat, making sure I'm not making anything up, making sure that everything is clearly explained. All right. Well, if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. So let's dig into this a little bit more, and let's see if we can identify. These are all what we call neutral lands here. So you see, we've got this L right here, and what does L mean? Well, back in the day when I had 30 or 40,000 lands, let's say, I am not kidding you. L literally means the same thing as create land as long as L is defined as number 32 right here. For whatever reason, the game basically works, everything is a number. Even like effect amount, even like commands and stuff like that, it's all numbers. It all goes into the game as numbers. It's just predefined numbers. This isn't predefined in the game files, it's predefined in this script file. And it basically is L, and it replaces create land with the L letter. And I kid you not, there was a time when I figured out that I could replace create land with this L, and because it would take up fewer characters in each line, it would make a leaner script, and I could actually shave like half of a megabyte off of a script by doing that, and it was totally worth it. So it's something that's just kind of stuck with us ever since, to have this L here. But it means neutral land. It means neutral land with a terrain type of dirt, a base elevation of 0, a base size of 1, a little bit of growth with land percent. And then it looks like each of these lands is basically being given its own zone. Zone 99 crashes the game. I don't think it crashes the game anymore because we tested it. But this syntax highlighter is old, but still good. But just a little out of date. Other zone avoidance distance 2. Land position 0, and then it looks like we kind of got ourselves a grid pattern for these land positions, right? We go from 0 to 100, and then we go from 0 to 100, and then we go from 0 to 100, and we keep on doing that through increments of 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. So we basically have got kind of this grid that we've auto-generated here. So you could go in, and other people have in the past, they've used ChatGPT. They've used the ChatGPT, and they basically kind of tell it the pattern, and you might be able to get the AI to figure this out, or you could use the compiler. So maybe you've got an AI that's really well trained and it's no problem, but I'm going to show you how to modify this grid pattern with the compiler. So we're going to come into this advanced RMS example.m. Go ahead and double click that. That will launch GNU Octave. So we'll give that a moment to launch up. Maybe double click it again. And GNU Octave, it's the free version of MATLAB. I sent you guys a link to it. Actually, you know what I could do is I could put a link in the website to GNU Octave as well. But it's not really needed unless you're doing advanced methods in random map scripting. Alright, so we'll get rid of this extra one. And so here we go. And we've got advanced RMS example. We're going to put up here in the title, otherwise I'll forget it. And today is the 21st. Okay, so what do you need exactly from this? Because you want to be able to basically save this file, and you want to be able to hit F5 or basically tell it to go and execute the file and have it do the thing that it needs to do in order to run. So we've got all these different spaces here, but let me explain them one at a time. So over here in my upper left-hand side, and yours may be configured a little bit differently. So stop me if there's anything that's confusing or you don't know, but this is the preference that I've been raised on, so this is kind of, it's in my defaults. We've got the file browser, which basically gives us the files that are accessible in this immediate folder. And then we have command history down here in the lower left, so top left is the files, lower left is the command history. And then we've got the overall script in this editor. And then in the lower window here, the command window. So basically the editor is all the commands that you have written out that you're like, okay, do these in this order, but don't do them until I say to do them. The command window is where you basically type line by line in case you want it to do a different command. So for instance, let's say that I wanted to do 2 plus 2. I could have it do 2 plus 2 right now. Or I could have it do like 2 plus 2 equals 5. And it would say 0, which is the logical way of saying no. But if I said 2 plus 2 equals 4, then it would say, yes, that is true. So, and it would return this 1. So it's got all kinds of built-in commands that are pretty awesome. And it's got commands that are built in for the purposes of making random maps. And that's what we're going over today, are the functions that belong to our community for that. But if you, at the very least, if you wanted to, you could use this as a function. Of course, it'll do like sine in degrees of 30 degrees, and it'll give you 1/2. Or you could do matrix operations, like we could get the eigenvalues of a matrix if we wanted to, right? 1, 0, 15, or 13, or something like that. 2, 3, and 4. And then 5, 6, and 7, something like that. It'll go and it'll get the eigenvalues, right? It's really fast. It's basically, if you are ever doing any math or anything like that, this is a fantastic thing. This thing can solve partial differential equations. It's extremely powerful. So we're not going to be solving any partial differential equations, although you might be surprised in some cases. So to clear all of that rubbish out of the way, we're just going to hit CLC and hit enter, and it clears out the command line. So, because that can be kind of distracting. Now finally, at the right hand side of the map, we have the workspace. So that is basically every variable that it calculated and loaded in when you hit enter and you ran an editor file. It'll basically go in and it'll report the values of each of these different things that it has computed over time. So see here how it's got answer, and answer is basically just the last thing that it solved for. In this case, it's kind of like a default sort of cache type variable. And in this case, it's remembering work that we did in the command window. So for instance, if we wanted to display a list of 5 different numbers from 1 to 2, and we wanted, let's say, 5 points in between them, well then there you go, right? We've got ourselves an array, and it can do all kinds of matrix operations. It's just so great. All right, so, and then it'll remember that for answer too over here, so you can see how it has this value, and we double click that and it brings up the variable editor so we can look at it in a little bit greater detail. 1, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, and 2, etc. All that good stuff. So again, if we wanted to clear that off the workspace, we would say clear all, and then it's gone from the workspace. It's no longer there. And then we can say CLC to remove it from the command window to basically give ourselves a fresh start. We could even clear the command history if we were really that paranoid. I believe you can right click in here and there's some way to clear it out. But I don't I actually know what it is right now, and it's not that important, so we'll forget about it. And we will pull this down. And... All right. So let's go through kind of what these different lines are in this thing. You want this, right? This is starting the timer. This display basically is saying, okay, we started at this time, and then it's going in, and this file struct equals dir. This is all of this stuff is basically getting the path that it's working from, and this will help it find the functions that it needs in order to crunch all of these numbers and compile the code. So it'll get the file name, and it'll tack an RMS at the end of it, I suppose. And then this RMS manual land thing, it should probably be called something smarter, but this is basically going in and it's going to read your file name, and it's going to come up with preface, and it's going to determine, okay, what is the code that I need to hold on to after I've read this script file. And then we can ignore all of this for now. All of these stuff with like the pound sign in front of it, this is all commented out, so it's not going to execute this if it's in the green. All right, and then by the way, guys, tell me if you have a hard time seeing it, because I can always zoom in on the stuff. All right, so let's get to the good stuff, what we're doing right here. So it looks like what we're doing is we're basically saying, all right, we're saying k is equal to 0, and then we're going in the x and y directions. We're starting from 0 and we're jumping by increments of 10, and we're going to 100. And you can use it, if at nothing else, you can use this and you can program the syntax in there directly. You can program in exactly the conditions that you want this lane to have. You don't have to use the processor at all. You know, you can just use it to do a mathematical operation here, which is basically what this thing has done, right? I mean, every time that it goes for every y value, it's going to generate 10 x values, and then it's going to basically take whatever it's got for y and whatever it's got, or sorry, y and x, given as my I and j indices, if you will, and it's basically taking that as the land position, right? And it's bumping that up. Okay, very good stuff. And it'll do that, what, 121 times, right? It's an 11 by 11 grid if you include the zeros, and it's keeping track of this k index here, and it's basically generating a new line in manual land appendix, and then it is tacking that on to the end. These other things are just kind of empty, except for preface, and so that's where it's coming up with this stuff from. So you should be able to come over here to your script file, and you should be able to select everything that's underneath this land auto scribe right here, and let's just highlight that and hit delete. Highlight that, hit delete, hit save, and so that we can confirm when we go back to the game and we hit generate, all of the dirts are gone, because the dirts were placed as lands. So now, and we deleted the lands, so now when we go back to our GNU Octave .m file, we should be able to hit this green button up here, and it'll execute this run. I'm surprised it didn't ask us to change the directory, but that's fine. It may ask you to change the directory or add to path, and you can do that. And it'll say run executed, and it always takes a little bit longer to run for the first time. I think it's just kind of Octave just setting things up. And then it'll say writing to file when it's done, and that's literally like takes half a second. And then it'll say the run was completed this time and took, in our case, 20 seconds. So now, when we go back to this .m file, we've got, it's all back, right? We've got all of these lands back exactly the way that we wanted them. And then with those being, sorry, when we go back to the .rms file, leaving the .m file, and then when we go to Age of Empires, and we've got the same name of the map here, right, but we changed the file, we hit generate, and boom, they're all back, right? So, Biscuits, why don't you give that a try? Or maybe you already did try it and it worked. Were you able to do that?
I deleted it. I deleted the stuff in the script, and then pressed the green button and the thing, and it said the thing about the directory, and then didn't seem to run. Do you need to tell it to run again after you do that, or is it supposed to run automatically?
So, in your command window, did it say anything about executing a run at all?
It looks like no.
All right. Can you share your screen with me?
Yeah.
Share it in the Discord, and we'll bring it up on my stream, and we'll troubleshoot it together, and we'll make sure that we get you in business.
All right, hold on a second here. Share my whole screen for this. So I have here the thing. Should be able to see it now. Hopefully,
Hold on.
Hopefully my computer can run all this.
Oh, it's not your computer. It is definitely my computer. My computer is old and tired. So we're going to bring this up. And Biscuits...
I'll show you to confirm, right? In the script, I deleted the... Make sure I saved it. That's saved. So I don't have any of the lands anymore.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yes. Yeah, it says I should be. So, should be on Discord. Should be able to join in that stream there. You have to go in Discord itself, and I think there's like it's like at the bottom. There's like the start watching button or something.
Maybe there's something stupid set up where this channel is not allowing you to stream for whatever reason, and it's all just my fault. All right, let's go over to... All right, try now, Biscuits. Try sharing your screen now real quick, and we'll just hope that my grandma doesn't join the chat or something like that and embarrass me on stream.
There. Okay. Let's see if it works now. Okay. Do you see my screen?
No.
Oh. Okay, that's interesting because it says I'm sharing.
Wait a second. I think I can see it, but it's Discord. Ugh, dang. All right, I'm an idiot. Never mind. I am watching your stream, but your stream is of Discord.
Oh, there must be a delay. Okay, hold on. Let me full screen octave. So what might have happened because I just shared the display, not a window or anything.
All right.
You should be looking at octave.
Okay, so it's just presenter syndrome. So Biscuits is going to share his screen, and it shows Discord at first, but maybe Biscuits can select the screen share option and share a specific screen. We can look at it and make sure that we get him all set up right.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, you know what? That was actually my fault. You're right. I thought I was sharing my screen, but I clicked the wrong thing. That was my bad. Hold on. Okay. Now, it should actually be showing octave, right?
Yes. Excellent.
Okay, so that was actually my bad. So, okay. So, to confirm, right, look at the script. I deleted the lands.
Okay, good.
We're in octave.
Okay.
So, we have to hit the green play button, right?
All right, so your file browser looks kind of scary, but go ahead and hit the green play button and see what happens.
Okay,
so nothing happens. So go ahead and go down to this command window, which looks like you've got a tab set up differently down there.
Yeah, I don't really...
All right. So it says...
I can put this here, actually.
Subscripts must either be... Oh, okay. So show me your file structure for where this script is.
This should be in random scripts. So it's right in random map scripts, and it's in here.
Okay. So it's just inside of the random map scripts folder. So if you went... Okay, so if you went up one... Okay, so that looks right. You got chem random map scripts there. You got chem function library. If you double click on the chem function library, yeah, you got all the functions there, so that's good. So that's cloned properly. Okay, and what line is it giving you dispute? It looks like it's line 14. So if we look at the script file and we look at line 14, I mean, it should... Sorry, not the script, the .m file.
I mean,
we look at line 14. let's see what it's having issues with. Okay. So go ahead and is it identifying your variable path? Does it actually store? Because there's 3 different things it's trying to do in there, right? And so if you show me if you can you get that variable editor out of your editor and stash that somewhere else? I would still need to see the command window. There you go.
I guess we could put it here.
Yeah, you can hit the X on the command history if you want. All right, so it looks like, and when you hit go up there on advanced RMS. Oh, wait a second. So what's up with your file browser? Maybe this is like a first time use kind of thing. But if you can you humor me and change your current directory from Octave to your random app script directory or the folder where you're at. Yeah, so go to your folder that's up there, maybe up or something like that, and choose wherever your RMS folder is, essentially.
So I gotta remember my structure. I gotta go. Should be Steam library. It's resources common. So this is the
Okay,
right
so let's go into double click on Advanced RMS EX, and then hit or maybe not. No, not that one, but go up one more. And can you select that folder somehow? Because if you see from my stream, where I have my folder for basically my file browser is the random app scripts folder with advanced RMS example, and you've got kind of like a bunch of nonsense over there, which could be related to like a first time setup. So you see how you've got like something different here? It's trying to run off of an Octave default. All right, so you're not able to select that in that way.
Yeah, it's telling me. It looks like it tells me I have to open this.
All right, try opening that. I mean, it's the same. So maybe. Oh, you know what? Up here for current directory, maybe that's the one. So above it,
this
up there.
here?
Yes, I think that you have to set your current directory, and that's where you got to select.
I'm gonna make my life easier. I'm just gonna copy the path.
That is really smart.
It's this. It's just a path to this.
Copy address.
Okay. I can't remember if that keeps. Okay, F Steam Library. Okay, so that
looks good. Okay, now try hitting run. You've got that there. So your file browser.
Here's the same answer.
All right, I'll tell you what. Just go ahead and close this entirely. Just close Octave entirely.
Okay.
And now I want you to go into, just make yourself a file underneath advanced RMS ex.m. Right-click and say Create Text File. Text document. Just say like something like, just give it a dummy name. .m.
Sure.
.m. That's the important part. All right, hit enter. Yep. Now go ahead and open it with Octave, and then run that. And that is in the same file. So when you run that, it should automatically change the directory around. So go ahead and launch GNU Octave by double-clicking on something.m.
I had this problem before. It didn't want to open. I don't know why. It wouldn't. I had to open it manually. I had something wrong about the way I configured it. But I don't know why that is. So it doesn't even look like it launched.
Okay, so go ahead and search for GNU Octave in your search bar.
I know it's in here.
Just go ahead and
folder. Is there a different?
Did you install it in like your downloads folder or something like that?
Well, it's not zipped, but it is here. I don't know if that's an issue. Maybe it needs to be put somewhere else. Because what I did is I launched it like this, which that might be the problem. I don't know.
Okay. So now you've launched it. Go ahead and leave everything here. I want you to take your folder and select something.m, and I want you to click on something.m and drag it into your Octave workspace. That's another way to open a file. So you got to have Octave open.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I got you.
and you basically drag something.m right to the right of that advanced RMS EX.
So like here.
Yeah, right there. That should be fine. Okay. So now go ahead and hit run on that and see what happens. Change directory.
Okay.
So that's what we want. We want to change that directory. So now you should note that your directory is very different. You've got, that's all in the right spot now. And so this actually looks like, this isn't your downloads folder. This actually looks like something useful. So now you can go ahead and close something because it's served its purpose, which was to get Octave to auto change the directory. Now try running advanced rms.ex. And at this point, since it's in the directory, it should be smart enough to go up a level, because it has to go up a level and it has to find all of these functions in order to use. All right, so there you go. So now it runs. So we just had to help you find that location.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
So it's all back.
All right.
I don't know why your thing was like automatically starting off in some weird downloads folder, but
sure.
I'm glad that we got it.
I probably clicked the wrong. To be honest, I probably just clicked something wrong.
I don't know. Maybe you can tinker with it a little bit later, but it.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay, that seems to be in order now. All right. Excellent.
All right. So now Biscuits has gotten the same setup that we have. He was able to use the script file. It was weird because his script started him off at a different location, so you may have to create a dummy file like that and just to get yourself in that folder, because the way that it works is it needs this to be basically one level up in the current directory. Or it needs to be able to find random map scripts and then look for chem rm function library and then go get all the functions in order to run stuff, guys. So if you run into any difficulty with that first time setup, please just personally reach out to me on the Discord, and we'll make sure that you're set up right if you have access to the compilers. So we're going to go back to advanced RMS example. And, of course, we go in and we see that all of this stuff is returned. Now, let's say that Biscuits doesn't want all of these lands here, okay? Let's say that Biscuits wants, he wants like 5 or 6 of them, you know, rows instead of 10. Well, then we can go over here to our .m file, and we can change this increment from 10 to 20. All right, and let's give ourselves a little bit more land percent. Maybe we give ourselves 4% land in this case. And so I've literally, in the course of about 15 seconds, changed 2 massively fundamental things about the neutral land configuration on this map. I have changed the spacing from 10 to 20, and I've changed the land percent from 1 to 4. So I have done something to make it so that we have basically a bunch of these big dirt patches instead. And now I'm going to hit run. And it'll take just a few seconds to update. Yeah, the first one took 20 seconds, and now it takes a second and a half to update. You can see my script file here. And a lot fewer lands in this case makes sense, right? I mean, it's easier to get to 100 if you're taking jumps of 20 instead of 10. All right, and now when I come back, I can hit generate, and you can see that I've got a lot of bigger lands now. And if I wanted to make the lands more square, I could come back here and I could, oops, not there. I mean, I could do like a control find, but there's, you know, there could be different base sizes and various different things. So it's safer just to change it in the actual .m file where it's being created, and I could do like a base size of 4. And the base size of 4, hit save and then run. When you run it, basically it automatically saves it. And I can hit run again, and I can see that it's done in less than 2 seconds. And then I come back over to AOE2DE. Let's select the same seed, and we hit generate, and as you can see, these are much more square. Okay, so right off the bat, if you use this for nothing else except you want to type in all of your commands, utterly, everything, you know, you don't trust it to set anything up, you just want it to, you know, crunch some numbers and perform some loops, and that's all you want to do, it'll still save you time, right? Imagine how much time it would have taken for us to go in and like delete every other single one of these. Or let's say that we want let's see if we can get actually a little bit more advanced than this now at this point. So I want to I kind of do want to go over some of the more important stuff, right? So I guess the next thing now is we kind of see that we've got ourselves a loop here, and it sort of works pretty nicely. Let's do something a little bit different. So let's take this and let's comment this out. Okay, and so we've got MLA being declared, and let's Control Shift R to uncomment something and Control R to comment something. Okay, save it. So now this should be an empty script file even when we run it. Let's just run it to confirm that dynamic list, static list, MLA, manual land appendix, all that good stuff, manual land prefix, MLP, all of it is commented out. So when I run that, I shouldn't need to delete these because it will auto-delete it for me. So I hit run, and the .m function is going in, and it's saying, oh, you don't want any lands? All right, that's fine. No lands for you. And then I can go back to this, and I can hit go, and sure enough, all of the lands are gone, right? So let's consider something a little bit, maybe a little bit, I don't want to call it crazy, because that's going to make me sound crazy. But let's consider different types of terrains for this grid. And let's consider that we have the possibility of generating different types of lands with different properties. So the way that this is done is we kind of got this L here right now. I guess, it's sort of not ideal. We can call it whatever we want. But let's go and let's try to make ourselves something pretty basic, right? Let's see if we can do like a some kind of like coastal situation. I don't know. We'll see where it takes us, right? Maybe 4 lakes, but with a slight twist. Okay. I'm imagining. I don't know. What do you guys want to do for this land? We got all kinds of different types of options. Let's give ourselves a lake, I think right down here in the center of the map. Let's give ourselves maybe a pond or something. I don't know. It's hard to exactly decide. But I'll just show it to you. I'm trying to think of an example where it's like it does something that you physically could not do with borders, let's say. But you could really do a lot with borders. Anyway, let's just start kind of setting that up right now. So we're gonna take this, and we're essentially gonna give ourselves maybe two different rows. I'm thinking maybe like a ridge, and then maybe a river toward the end of it. So we're gonna uncomment a lot of this stuff here, but first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna identify X directions, right? So the very first thing that we want to do, I think, is we're going to do land.tt. All right, and that is the terrain type. And we are going to set these up as arrays, and we've got these square brackets here. And the first thing that we want is we want these squiggly brackets now, and then we want squiggly brackets again, and we don't need to have the comma here. In GNU Octave, the comma or the space tells it that you want a different column. If you wanted to go onto a different row, then you would leave the semicolon, and then you would require 2 entries to put onto that row. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell one of these sides to be dirt. Oops. But we have to spell dirt correctly. And we're going to tell another one of these sides to be water. Just like that. Okay, so this is basically telling GNU Octave that the .tt structure, the terrain type of this land structure, so L is the structure that's storing all of this land information, and it's telling it, okay, you want the left half to be dirt and you want the right half to be water. Sounds good, right? Now let's give it some coordinates, because if we just gave it that, okay, what it would do is it would say, oh, all right, well, you want dirt, you want water, I'll give you a land that's dirt on one side, and I'll give you a land that's water on the other side. So we could actually just leave it as that, just kind of be funny, and I think that actually is what we're going to do. So We'll just order up dirt and water for now. What else do we need? All right, this is a delicious breakfast, by the way. All right, so we need RMS processor v6. We're going to need that later, but first we're going to need land scribe. All right, this line right here that's currently in line 53. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it up here, kind of in this section. Okay, so all this stuff is kind of in a section. Most of it's commented out because we're not doing anything with it right now, but we're going to paste that in there, and we're going to hit Control-Shift-R. We're going to uncomment it, and then we're going to have, we should really name it something. We'll just leave it as L for now. Could regret it, but that's okay. I have a lot of regrets in life. If this is my biggest regret, I'm doing well. So we're going to change all of these to L, and basically what this land scribe thing does is we are feeding the L structure with all of our land information into land scribe. It's looking at every single field in that structure, and it's figuring out exactly what you want in terms of that land, and it basically puts it into a giant matrix that's much easier to read. And the reason that it needs this matrix is because if you have multiple sections with overlapping lands, like some lands are more important than other lands, and two lands happen to be ordered to be in the same location, if you do that, then it needs to know which land gets priority and which land is less important. So the way that we order LM_L tells it which lands have priority. So that's why we need LM. So LM is just some big matrix, all right? And we could potentially do like different zones and stuff like that, but we're just going to do the one zone for now. And because we could potentially need to order it. So we've got this LM_L, and that is an important input. Let me just, well, you guys are here. Let's right-click. You can always right-click on a function and hit Edit, just to see what's inside of it. And there's generally like notes and stuff that help you out, Biscuits. And so this has got like all of the different fields that you can specify. They're classified into different types. There's qualities, there's avoidances, there's window arguments, there's sizing arguments, there's geometric arguments, etc., 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 right? But ultimately, these are all the different types of fields that you can give it. So we're giving it the TT field, which is the terrain type. Okay, don't change anything unless you really know what you're doing in there. But if you want to see all the different types of properties that you can give these lands, you know, you can look in there. All right, so now we've got, let's uncomment this one, and we need LM_L as an input to RMS processor. So what is RMS processor doing? So the land scribe is taking all of the information that we provided through all the different fields in the land, and we're going to build on this, and there's going to be a lot more information there, so you'll understand why it's important. So that takes it and it converts it into matrix format. And then we have like all the different matrices that we feed into this as inputs. And depending on whether or not, let me just give you another example. You know, LM example 1, and there's LM example 2. All right, so depending on whether or not LM example 1 is to the left or to the right of LM example 2 is going to determine the order of precedence. We only have one matrix that we're dealing with because we only generated one set of lands. But in theory, there's no limit. All right, so we need to be able to give it hierarchy. Assuming that we have it in the order that we want now, this function, RMS processor, will take all of that matrix information, and this is what generates the actual lines of code. This is what actually says create land, terrain type grass, land position 100, 100, border fuzziness 57, you know, stuff like that. That's what actually types all that stuff out for you. All right, and in this case we're calling it the static list, just because that's the variable name, and I could potentially explain more along those lines later. And we'll hit Control S and we will save. Okay, and now let's see, LM_L, and then static list, and then static list is being fed into the final code, and the final code is being provided to RMS Forge v4, which is a function with no outputs. This function writes it back to the script file. Okay, so now that we have done that, let us go ahead and hit go. All right, and it should run pretty quick because all it's got to do is, yeah, it's just got one thing. We need to put a semicolon here so that it suppresses the output, unless you want to see the output, which in that case you remove the semicolon. All right, so it created 2 lands because it's all we asked for. You said you wanted dirt, you said you wanted water. I made dirt and water, and I wrote that to your script file. That's basically what this is saying. Where is it? It's right here. And it's doing its best to give the dirt and the water an equal chance. It basically is breaking this map down into 9 different pieces. That's why, you know, percent chance 11 is because it's got 9 different blocks. It's like a tic-tac-toe grid, and it's giving stuff an 11% chance to basically spawn in each of the grids now as the origin of that land. Now, just because it's the origin doesn't mean that that's the only place the land's going to be. But it looks like it kind of has sort of limited it there. But you can see, you know, now it's just kind of doing that. So it basically fills up a different tic-tac-toe grid. One of them, I guess it tried to fill in both, but you get the idea. This is not really necessarily what we want. So, what do we want? Well, let's see if we can flesh a little bit more refinement into this. So we had originally just stated, okay, we want dirt, we want water. Maybe we can do a little bit better of a job of telling it where we want the dirt and where we want the water. So what we're going to do now is we are going to come over here and we are going to specify X positions, okay? And we basically, with this L dot X, all right, we are basically telling it, give these different types of terrain these X positions, but not Y positions. And so I think that we can just put some basic numbers in here. Let's say that we wanted 4 of them, okay? We could have one at maybe 10, and then maybe we could have one at 30, and then one at 50, and then one at 70, and then one at 90. All right, so maybe not 4, but maybe, you know, 5 of them. All right, and these are in the same direction as dirt and water, so therefore it'll actually, it'll be funny because what'll happen is half of this left half, if you will be dirt, and the right half will be water. So it's going to try to split it up, and it's basically going to make these 2 dirt, these 2 water, and this one in the middle, I think, will have a 50% of being dirt or water. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure because I've never tried it, but we'll see exactly what happens. In theory, it should work pretty well. And it doesn't like it very much. Border position. What? Maybe we are confusing it. I'm not going to debug that right now. So I'll tell you what. Let's do one more thing then. Let's see if we can, if we have to. Oh, you know what? I think we have to transpose that. See if that it likes that a little bit better. Nope, it doesn't like that any better. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to specify that we want 2 different X positions. Okay, we want one X position to be 20. And we want the other X position to be 80. Just like that. One of them is going to correspond to the dirt. The other is going to correspond to the water. And then we're going to make this a Y position here. And we're going to transpose that. So basically what will happen is, and I can actually think this through. Maybe the reason this is happening is because I never tested that. Oh well. There's still lots of stuff you can do. So it's going to put the dirt at position 20. It's going to put the water at position 80. Because this is a single row with 2 columns, and this is a single row with 2 columns, so it'll do that. And then it will basically sprinkle that 5 lands up the edge of the map. So we'll probably get something that sort of splits the map in half. It's 10 lands, right? That makes sense because it's 2 in one direction and 5 in another direction. So we hit go, and that does run properly. And we can see that the 10 lands are written here. And now we should hit generate. And you can see that the map is kind of split directly in half. It's kind of cool how it splits it like that, actually. But it's definitely a pretty jagged coastline, right? the kind of coastline that you could get traditionally with land generation. But, you know, you probably don't really want this. There's a reason that you don't want this. So let's see if we can get this a little bit more subdued, a little bit more under control. Let us give this a single number of tiles and a single base size, okay? So let us give this a base size of 2. And let us give this a number of tiles equal to 200. Something like that. That could be... Let's do something a little bit... Yeah, maybe like 100 or something. Okay.
Hey, Tech, can I stop you for
Oh,
a
yes,
second?
please stop me.
I was following along and there was no problems, and now I think... Here, let me just share my screen. I think I did something wrong because now it says it's running, but then the script doesn't change. So, hold on, let me pull this up.
All right, let's see.
So, I think I probably just added something weird somewhere.
Oh, sometimes that can happen.
So, we have the L.tg, right? It was dirt and water. And
Yep.
You have to have the little character marks, right?
Yep.
There's an X and Y. We have the land scribe, right?
Yep.
And then, what was the RMS processor, right?
Yep. So here's what's happening. You've got a static list underneath that original static list that's clearing it out. So you want to comment that out. I did that pretty fast. There you go.
I knew there was going to be something. Let me just check.
All right.
If it works. Oh, I forgot. I moved the window somewhere else. Yeah, it looks like it worked. Let me see.
Wherever is easiest for you.
Oh, yep. Okay. Oh, no, wait. Hold on. Okay, it did run. But, okay, that's interesting. I still think I did wrong here because the lands it created are like... they've got the wrong type.
Can you show me?
Yeah, hold on. I did the wrong thing again. Hold on. I gotta change my... Hold on. Okay, so let me show you. This is what I ended up with.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like, I'm not sure. So the train type is clearly not
wow, look at that.
correct.
How did you manage that? All right,
I don't know.
Let's go back to your script. I hope you're not. Okay. So are those the curly brackets, or are those the curly brackets, or are those just parentheses on dirt and water?
Oh, this here?
Yep.
That's normal parentheses.
All right. So you want shift, and then the square bracket, the curly bracket. That's a good point, because when you're watching my stream, you can't tell.
It looks like a normal parentheses. I see. Okay.
Yeah. So the stream is confusing. So just for those guys that are following in the chat, you know, beware that there's a difference between curly brackets, which are these ones, and regular parentheses.
But do these, for this functions, is this is normal to have parentheses, right?
Yeah, functions are always normal parentheses.
Yeah. Okay, good. So then, okay, so let's see. And I forgot I put the window somewhere else. Okay, that looks different. Okay, all right.
Perfect.
I think it's working. Ah, okay.
All right, very good.
Excellent. Okay. All right, sick.
Yep. Any other issues, stop me as we go through the presentation.
That's all for now. Thank you.
So all that I've done since is I've added a number of tiles of 100 and a base size of 2. Because, you know, in the first way, we can't really see the individual lands themselves. They are growing, and they are trying to occupy 100% of the map. And when they default to whatever the default base size, which is, I think, is actually probably 2, you know, that square is small compared to the overall size that these things are trying to grow. So the default that these things are trying to have in terms of number of tiles is 14400. So we're going from 14400 to just 100. And that's going to make these ponds kind of a little bit on the smaller size. Okay, so we hit run on that. and I'll just run it again because I don't remember, but I could always go down here and check when it was run and then be like, oh yeah, that was last run 10 minutes ago or whatever. So I know that that is probably too old, or that was just run right now, then I know, oh, you know, I ran it. Okay, so we go back, and we should see that it has indeed added like base size and number of tiles to that. So now when we go and we hit generate, you should see that, okay, we've got these dirts, right? And you can do all kinds of stuff, like if the dirt is not allowed to intersect the edge of the map, we could add that in as part of our logic. Yeah, because we're actually going to work on kind of a simple map together, guys. I sort of had originally planned to make something a little bit more complex, but I think I'm going to save that for a little bit later. So let's let me think here about this map. So let's say that we intend to put a bunch of golds on these dirts right here, and let's say that we're actually not going to do the let's not do the dirt. Let's do something like oops, let's come back in here, and we're going to do DLC quicksand or DLC rock. All right, so we're going to do DLC rock here, and the reason that that's going to matter is because when we click to save this seed, okay, and we hit enter, so we should have the exact same shape here, except all right, well, whatever, prove me wrong, why don't you? But there is a chance, right? There is a chance, especially if we maybe increase the size of these, which we could sort of do. So let's kind of grow it, and let's be a little bit creative here. Maybe dial up the number of tiles to something like 200, and then we're going to say that we want this to be 4. There is still the chance, and we're going to see if we can get it. We'll hit go here. Again, this is all very simple stuff that we're making this with our basic tutorial as I'm showing this. But you can do some really insane stuff. Okay, so this is the example that almost the example that I was looking for. Maybe we do a couple more generations. Of course, it's going to give me a hard time. Okay. So we can see that there's an intersection here. So let's deal with that right now. So let's come here. And we know that we have all these different Y positions, right? For these little lakes or for these little mounds. Oh, I see. I'm sorry to hear that. Can't follow properly. Have a good afternoon. Okay, so these ponds are intersecting, and we don't want them to intersect. So in order to fix that, we will keep this seed, and we will give these zones, and then we will give them zone avoidances. So let's address that right now. So we're going to freeze this seed number, and we're going to come over here, and we note that we have 5 of them, but we're going to keep this sort of general. So we're going to maybe, let's hit Control D while hovering over it. And now we are going to do something a little bit more advanced, okay? So we are going to, let's come down here in the command window, and let's see if we can figure out what the length of L.Y is. Ah, that's what I was afraid of. What's going on? Surely L should have a structure. Well, you know what? Probably what's happening is it's going into Landscribe and it's changing it slightly. And this will actually tell me the fields that it's giving it later. So there's B and there's G, and I'll kind of explain the difference between these somewhat later. So there's YG and there's YB. So if we tried to find the length of L.YB, which it gives it automatically, it's equal to 1. Well, that doesn't help me very much. All right, tell you what. let's come over here and let's just say something like ny, okay? And we're going to say that ny is equal to 5, okay? And now we're going to do L.y is equal to linspace from the minimum y value, which is 10, to the maximum y value, which is 90, with ny, ny points, which is 5. So it's going to do 5 points between 10 and 90. So actually, we can comment this out. I'll explain where the G and the B's are coming from in a little bit, and why we're starting. Why we're starting without that. It's just plain Y for now. No YB, no YG, etc. Okay. So now let's hit run, and let's just confirm that that's still working properly. We've commented this line out, and we replaced it with something that allows us to more quickly change the number of points in between if we chose. So, alright, so that's good. Elapsed time is whatever that is. Okay, so as you can see, it's still there. This is kind of close to the edge of the map, but it's still there. Generates it, it's okay. Some of these are a little bit close. Maybe we lift up this seed and we do generate a few more times. We should be able to confirm an intersection. Okay, actually this is a good opportunity right here. So you guys can see that this pond is intersecting the edge of the map, and that is not allowed. Let's say that we have a map where we don't want somebody to wall, we don't want somebody to have a free ride here and be able to just assume that, or count on the fact that this is inherently walled here. So this is a good opportunity to explain the difference between XB and XG. Or, in this case, YB and YG. So we'll get rid of this for now. Don't need that. So when I put X and Y directly into, when I store them directly as fields of this structure, when I do that, it assumes that both B and G are the same values. So B stands for base and G stands for growth center. Base is where it is physically putting the base of that block. And G stands for where is the growth from wherever that block is placed constrained relative to. So, in this case, I want to state that this is where the base of the block is being placed. And it does not have a growth center, but I don't think it needs one. So we hit run again, and it shouldn't change anything. It'll just be noting, okay, you're putting the base of your square in this location. So when I hit generate, and that should not be happening, but whatever. They must have changed the RMS engine a bit. That is actually very unsettling, because now it's harder for me to tell whether or not the changes are actually debugging stuff. Let's see if we can get something that's a little close to the edge. Alright, here we go. So we're going to keep this one, and now we're going to keep this seed. And let's go back to the script itself. Notice that we actually have not been into this script at all. We've been interacting with it through the GNU Octave editor. So now, let's come in here and let's specify something. We want L.xg to be the center of the map, 50. And that's the beauty of it, is these things do not have to necessarily have the same size. It will try to like map things properly. And now we're going to say that we want L.yg to be the center of the map. So why are we doing this? We are basically telling it, okay, any border constraints that you have are going to be done relative to the center of the map instead of relative to the base where this block is placed. So now, again, we put that there, we hit go. It shouldn't change anything. There should still be the 10 lands out. Yeah, there's still the 10 lands out that it has. We keep this seed number, and it moves around a little bit, but I guess not very much, so it's not that big of a deal. Again, we see that this is really, really close to the edge of the map, and let's see if we can actually get one where it intersects the edge of the map. One of these does. Come on. Yeah. Okay. This is good enough. So we're going to keep this seed right here. Now let's go and do the borders. So the borders, we got the sizing there. I believe it's L.V.S1 and L.V.S2 and L.V. Sorry, I think it's W S1 L.W.S2. All right. So let's double check that. Make sure that we've got the syntax correctly. So these are the windows that it appears in. Minimum Y distance within which the land can grow past its origin. If no Y value is specified, which we are specifying. So it actually might be a little bit even simpler than that. So let's try simplifying this for now. But it is V and W. So we're gonna get rid of these two. We're gonna get rid of the S1 and S2 at the end of it, and we're gonna try making it something like 80. And this is telling it that it can basically grow within 80% of the total window of the map. So it's basically going to take 10% off of each edge. For each edge, it's going to come in 10% of that total edge length, and it's going to restrict the land from growing out there. And it's going to do it in both directions, one for X, one for Y, because we're specifying both V and W. So let's give this a try. I don't know if it's going to work. We might have to troubleshoot it. It's been a while since I have executed that command specifically, but it looks like it compiles properly. So it does something. We go back to the script, and we can see that each of these lands now have been given a border avoidance of 10%, which was actually exactly what I predicted. That might be too much. We might have to fine-tune it, but we'll hit generate. And now, as you can see, this land is not allowed to grow out toward the edge of the map, so it's being pushed inward. So actually, it probably is a little bit too much. Biscuits, are you still with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the same.
Excellent.
Still working.
So let's maybe bump this up to, say, 90, and we're going to try to fine-tune that a little bit and get it to look nice, be reasonable, all that good stuff. All right. It's done. And as you can see, it does grow out a little bit more, but we should still have the border avoidance. And actually, you know what, just for the sake of just testing it and making sure that it's always going to work, let's do something ridiculous, right? Let's give this number of tiles, let's make this equal to 2,000 instead of 200. And sometimes you really just got to try to be ridiculous and try to break the constraints that you're putting in. And when you confirm that you can't break those constraints, you know that they're working properly. So I've now multiplied the area that each of these ponds and hills, really, or these rocky patches should occupy. I've multiplied it by tenfold. So now when I hit generate, you can see that, yeah, it could even try to take up the entire map, but it's still going to respect these borders. And if you wanted it to be a little bit cleaner, let's say you didn't quite find that this was an acceptable distance, we could come in here, for instance, and where we're specifying the borders, we could put L.BF for border fuzziness, and we could set that equal to 100, I believe, which means borders are perfectly respected. And we could hit generate again, and then it'll go in and it'll put border fuzziness of 100, and I believe that will tell it to respect the border perfectly. And so then when we hit generate, you can see that we've got straight line here entirely. Okay, so now it's just a matter of scaling back the size of that thing and just positioning it properly to make sure that it's ending up where we want it. So we kind of got this weird map going along. I was going to do something a lot harder, but decided to keep it simple for now. All right, so we've dialed that back. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, sure enough, this is avoiding it, right? This is avoiding it. We know that even if we tried to make these occupy the entire map, they would avoid it. Let's actually rarely go into the script file, just because I'm tired of looking at these rocky, flat rocks. And we're going to do terrain type DLC rock. All right, we're going to save that. And then generate. All right, so these are proper rocky outcroppings now. Okay. So if we do a few generations of this, we should come up with a generation where... Oh, we just had it. Oh well, can't go back. All right, we should come up with a generation where these two are unacceptably close, right? And these two are also unacceptably close. So if we kept this seed for what it's worth, and we tried to put something like a dragon ship or something like that in here, demolition raft, you can see that the demolition raft could sail all the way through here. And we don't want that. We want these, let's say that we want these ponds to be completely isolated from each other. So now we're going to go in, and this is all, you know, basics of RMS stuff. That's kind of the beauty of it, is you know, if you could do it, theoretically, you could have all just programmed this by hand, right? But you're probably not ready for the part that we're going to show in just a few minutes here. So let's bake in the rest of the stuff that you could program by hand, and then we'll really whip out the advantages for this, all right? So we are going to need to think about zones. So we've got the border avoidance here. So we're going to have L.Z. Actually, it's a capital Z. Now, why is this working, right? How is it going to know which zone to give which land? It's creating 10 lands. 5 of them are water, 5 of them are rock. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to go, let's say like L.Z, and we're going to say linspace, another linspace, linearly spaced. We're going to go from zone 1 to zone 5, and we're going to have what, five points is it, right? So we want numbers 1 through 5, and let's see, yeah, we got 5 of these, 5 points. Seems easy enough, right? So that should be all that we need. So now we hit, oh, actually, better yet would be is if we put NY in here. That way it changes depending on the number of lands that we have. And we're actually going to put NY in here on the top boundary too. So now we can hit go. Actually, I forgot something. I forgot. I guess we'll just hit go and we'll show that the zones are properly coded in. So we should be able to find zone, yeah, zone 1. And you'll note that there are 2 zone 1s, right? But one of the zones, one of the zones is a rock and the other is a rock. So that's not right. There's actually multiple zone 1s. What's going on with that? It's all for... So there are... It looks like... And they are sort of randomly arranged, too. Let's see. Let's see if we can troubleshoot that. Oh, you know what it is? That's the little stuff that gets you, right? This Y distribution is vertical, but this is horizontal, right? Like if we took this and we copied this in and we pasted this into our command window, right click and said paste, and then hit enter, we would get columns. We would get a single row. But if we took what we did for the Y dot, or for the Y base positioning, and we pasted this in, oops, come on, we would get a single column with 5 rows. So that's why it didn't work, is because we want each of these positions in the Y direction to correspond to a different zone number. So therefore, we need to add this transpose command, this apostrophe here. And then let's do L.oza, and that OZA stands for other zone avoidance, and we're going to tell them all to be 2. So we're going to add the 2 there, and then we're going to rerun it. And then we should be able to go back into the code and just check it, make sure that everything seems reasonable, which hopefully it does. Okay, and this looks a lot better, right? There's one zone 1 that's corresponding to rock. There's one zone 2 that's corresponding to water. Now I don't really care, right? Because look, the water and the rock are literally so far apart. What are the chances they're ever going to need to avoid each other, right? I mean, you could, if you were really, really paranoid, you could go in and give every single one of these lands a different zone number if you wanted to. But I don't see the need to, so I'm not going to. So I'm going to keep this seed. I'm going to hit generate. And these will all avoid each other by 2 tiles minimum. They should, anyway, after we run it. So let's make sure that that is run. It doesn't look like 2 tiles, but I'll run it just to make sure. Okay, so now they should have... Oh, you know what? The reason why it's not working, these need to be in all caps. OZA. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So now we're going to rerun it. And we should confirm that other zone avoidance distance shows up. There it is. It's 2. Now, when we keep this seed and we hit run, this should not be so close together. And it's not. Okay, so it looks like that's what 2 tiles other zone avoidance distance can get you. Oops. Yeah. Looks pretty good, right? But I think it's not quite enough, right? I think we need a little bit more. So let's keep this seed. And let's increase that other zone avoidance distance to, let's say, 4. Keeping the seed and running. There we go. So that looks a bit better. We could increase that further, etc., etc., etc. So now we're going to introduce some randomness and see, how does it look? If it looks too close, we can always bump up the other zone avoidance distance. You can make it whatever you think it should be, whatever looks good to you. Maybe you feel that, that's a little bit too close. Then we can take this, keep this seed. We can bump it up to something like 6. Keep in mind that it's going to scale different. It's going to look different depending on the different map sizes. So you have to kind of test this on tiny, right? Because on the tiny map size, you're going to have the smallest dimensions to work with. The lakes are going to be the most crowded. Okay, and there we go. They're avoiding each other more generously now. And then we could come in here, and this isn't anything that'll solve the problem, but if we wanted to, we could duplicate this line now, and we could say clumping factor, and I think we make that about 25 from the default, and that just helps round the lands out a little bit more. Okay, yeah, those look a little bit rounder to me. I don't know about you. You can see that this land is trying to go that way a little bit. That's all right. So whatever tweaks you think are necessary. But I kind of want to show the next part of the tutorial, which is the placement of players. So if we go back to the script now, and we want to create some players, what we would do is we would come up here to player setup, and we would say random placement. And then we would come above land auto scribe, and we would say create player lands. And maybe we give it a circle radius of base size 0, land percent 0, because they don't have to be that large. And then we're going to give them circle radius of, let's say, 15. 0 is a required input. And then in order to detect the player lands, we will create object town center. And then we will do set place for every player and find closest. Okay. So there it is. So we're creating some player lands and we're putting a town center on top of that origin of those player lands so that we can see them. And now, when we hit go, we note that we have something pretty bad. So does anybody know what the problem for this is? Biscuits, how you doing?
Yeah, one sec. I'll see if I know what the problem is.
All right, I'll be right back. So Biscuits is going to implement that section of the code, and I'll be right back, guys. Let me refill my water real quick. Don't go anywhere.
Huh. What the hell? Oh.
Okay, so I'm back. Sorry about the delay, guys. So Biscuits, what's the problem with how we've done this?
Well, there's one near the water and there's one by the land.
Right.
So that's not very fair.
That's not fair, right? You generally have fish in the water, so one player is going to be able to have the opportunity to build fish faster, and the other player is going to be closer to the gold that we're going to put on these mounds. But I would say the players would probably want the fish more. But whatever they want more, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that this create player lands is too stupid to recognize that we have lands of a certain type. Like this one could be kind of okay, right? They're sort of close to it. So here's what we have to do. We basically have to put these players down ourselves. Now, if you were a random map scripter in 2018 or 2019, what you would do, or even now, they still do this, what you would do now is you would use direct placement. And so I will perhaps attempt to show you. So we're going to come up here and we're going to say direct placement. And direct placement allows us to directly put the players somewhere. Alright, so we got that. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to say, oops, create land. Which we just use L for. Alright, and then we're going to say land position. Let's say, 50, 35. And then we're going to say assign to player 1. Alright, so this should get one player set up, right? Okay, so there's one player. We've selected 2 players, but we haven't created another land for the other players, so therefore they are not created. So now we go back and we're going to do this again. base size 0, land percent 0, land position 50, and then we're going to move 15 in the other direction, so that's going to be 65, and then assign to player 2. Alright, so it's just kind of a simple, crude way of doing it. So this is acceptable. And if this map were made for a map contest 2 years ago or 3 years ago, what they would do is they would set it up just like this. The map would be static. It would be in this configuration every single time. They'd make it really pretty. They'd go to the stream of the tournament host, that's receiving the money from Microsoft. They would schmooze. They would make friends, and this map would win. This map would be like the really awesome and creative thing that they did, and all they did was set up a fixed starting position for the players, because that is easy. That's what we we did it in just a few minutes. And the map wouldn't support 2v2, it wouldn't support 3v3, it wouldn't support 4v4 or anything like that. Direct placement, my favorite. Exactly. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, Thomas. I think I have a good guess of who you are. But what I'm telling you is that it doesn't have to be that way. There are more advanced techniques that are available to us because of variety, right? A random map script should maximize variety and minimize unfairness. And we showed you the create player lands approach to it, which is totally unfair, and you cannot do that. And we've shown you the direct placement method, which is fair because they're the same distance from the pawns, but it's predictable. Now we're going to show you hybrid random direct placement, which is the same concept as this, but we're basically going in and pre-computing a bunch of different positions for these players to at least introduce some level of randomness for them. So, what do we need for that? Well, we need to go back into the script, and we're going to come over here to the player land construction section. All right, we're going to keep some of these other arguments. I guess we can keep these. We can get rid of these. We don't need those. All right. And this thing, the way that it works, is actually quite fascinating. So we are going to uncomment this. This first line here where we're declaring G and C. And then we're going to uncomment this player land declaration. And then we're going to uncomment. So we're gonna so this RMS CPL v10, it's taking geometric inputs for the G, and it's taking characteristic inputs from the C, and it is generating a set of create player lands. And now we're going to come down here, and we're going to inject CPL into after static list. So after the static list, after the dynamic list, we're going to type CPL, because that is a set of commands created by this special function, RMS CPL v10. Okay, so now what remains is we need to program in the geometric and the characteristics of these player lands. So let's start with the characteristics of the player lands. So we're going to uncomment these two lines and kind of start with these as a basic. So BE, what is it? Oops. This is the base elevation. BS is the base size. NT is the number of tiles. ZA is the zone avoidance, which is 0. And delta is how much linear slop we want to give them. Because you could always, before I hit go, you could always, with a map like this that's set up in this way, you could, for instance, you could have RND in here. And you could have it pick a random number between, plus or minus 5. So 45 and 55, and you could do, let's copy this. Oops, come on. RND 45, 55. Okay, and then we could do RND 30 and 40, and we could do RND 60 So this is basically our linear slop of plus or minus 5 in this case. And we save that, and we go back to the map, and we hit generate. All right. And even if we make it relatively small, this is a linear slop. So as you can see, not fair, right? It's not fair at all, because it has no way of tracking what it did for the other player and determine that it needs to do the same for both. It just puts them wherever. So that's why you can't rely on that linear slop, okay? Because you can have a situation like this. So linear slop is generally not something that's desirable, but it is an option in case you're working with maps where it's not as sensitive to that kind of thing. So that's why we have delta equal to 0. So we've got these characteristics here. We're overriding it with these characteristics. And now let us hit go. We'll have it run. We haven't given it any geometry yet so far. And that's something that we will add in later. So we have that. That runs. Hit go. Oh, what do we got? We got some that are elevated and some that are not elevated because we never deleted the old ones. So let's get rid of these. We don't want these. But after hitting run, you will note that we've got a bunch of contingencies that have appeared beneath our auto-scribed lands that say, oh, you know, if you've got this number of players, if you have team positions enabled, blah, 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 right? And the important thing is it's generating this land. It is giving it this terrain type of PT1, base size 3, base elevation. You should notice that a lot of these are corresponding to the characteristics that we gave. And then, depending on the situation, whatever is selected, it gives them different land positions. And it's smart enough to give them essentially symmetric land positions around the center line between the players. All right, so this can get pretty complicated, and that's okay. So now, after deleting those duplicates, we should be able to hit generate. And as you can see, we've got some players set up here. Now, you might look at this and you might say, well, this is not an improvement. All that you did was make it less intuitive. But that's not true. That's not true at all, because we have not even scraped the surface of what this can do. So let's go back now and let's do one more thing, actually. Let's kind of look at this and say, number of players, let's go 4 players. And let's adjust the map size for 4 players as well. And you should note that already, even without doing anything, we have improved this in the sense that it works for more than 2 players now. Although we do have to be a little bit careful. It looks like red and yellow are on this side and blue and green are on this other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to 6 players, and we're just going to confirm that that works. 6-player map size. And I hope we have enough space really to do what we want to do here. Otherwise it'll be a little bit awkward. Okay. Red, yellow, and purple. Alright, so I guess it is kind of working, right? And now we're going to go up to 8-player size with 8 players. Hit generate. And you can see, yes, okay, this is a fair distribution for these teams. Is this ideally what you want? Maybe not necessarily, right? But you can see that each of these teams, if you've got orange, purple, yellow, and red against blue, green, cyan, and gray, they have equal opportunity, both teams do, to take these resources. It's not like one team is closer to one type of resource than another. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can pull these teams together a little bit. Now, there is no way that I know of to do this except to change base size in like a team placement type scenario. But what we are going to do is we're actually going to dig into this function a little bit and see if we can adjust these parameters here. So we're going to edit this because it's assuming, this thing is basically assuming defaults. All right, and this is what we need to know right here. So we'll copy this, if it's not already in, which it's not. Okay, and we're gonna maybe place this right here. Okay, so these are the geometric inputs. So we're gonna have R. So we need to establish a vector of radii, and what did we have for that? 15 earlier. So we're gonna say 15. So the next input is the vector of angular offsets between flank and pocket. Okay, so we're going to leave that AO, angular offset, we're going to leave that equal to 45. And I don't think we're really going to mess with that too much today. Vector of angular distance to centroid of teams. Okay, so angle centroid, and we're going to set that equal to 180. And actually a lot of this stuff we could probably just directly... Yeah, actually, let's do that. So let's get rid of this at the top. We don't need this anymore. And we're just gonna come at this from, just load it into a single array. Always remember to put these semicolons at the end, because and you can see that it's in the example, right? The semicolons are right here. Okay, radii. So let's do 15. Flank and pocket, angular offsets, 45. Vector of angular distance centroid to teams, so we want the teams to be 180 apart. And vector of clocking seat angles, we're going to set that equal to 0 for now. Vector of team biases, we're going to set that equal to 0. Eccentricity, we're going to set equal to 0 as well. That is like elliptical shape stuff. We don't want an elliptical shape for this. And truly, we are going to leave off the matrix of team centers. Although, we could just, I believe, just put in 50-50 because we want these teammates, both teams, to be centered around position 50-50. All right, so you don't have to put these in, but if you do put them in, you have to put them in this order. So now we should be able to hit go, and it should rebuild the player lands that we want. Okay, it's done about 2 seconds later. We go back to check the script file. There's all this stuff there. That's good. So it's doing something. And now we should be able to come back here and say go. And you can see that it's pulled these players into a radius of 15 instead, which is also good. Now, is this exactly how we want the players set up? Well, I think we could do a little bit larger radius, right? So let's come over here and let's give them a larger radius. And the very first thing that we always kind of want to do is just sort of to set up the bounds that we want, get an idea of where we want it to be. And it's a little bit of trial and error, just trying things and testing it. It's very similar to how random app scripts are made without compilers. You know, you just put the number in, you see if it looks right, and if it doesn't, you adjust it. Okay, so that looks like it could be a good lower boundary. Let's duplicate this now, and we'll comment this out so we kind of have a good lower boundary set up. And let's set up an upper boundary, and let's see if 26 is going to work well for us as an upper boundary. So we let the radius be 26. We hit generate, and as you can see, these players are a little bit close. Could be okay. We're going to pull it back a little bit, maybe to 24. And that will probably be much better. Alright, so now with this, we can do all kinds of stuff, really. So we know that this radius could be somewhere between 20 and 24. So therefore, we could set the radius. We could basically tell it to be 21, or 22, or 23, or 24. So there's 5 different options for the radius in here. And this is really the beauty of the program. This is where it is an advantage, because we are basically telling it, you have permission to generate the players in this configuration for any combination of the listed vectors here. So we're telling it, okay, you could do a radius of 20, 21, etc. So now we hit go, and we should see it computes all of that. That's fine. So now we're going to kind of monitor the health here. Let's see if I can pull this to the right or expand this somehow. Because we can get pretty big files this way. We're currently at 18 kilobytes. So we're doing okay for now. But we will have to keep an eye on that as we add more possibilities. Okay, so we pulled that in. Now we're going to hit generate. And as you can see, the players are repositioning depending on the seed. So we hit generate and the players end up in different places depending on whatever the seed is that we selected. All right, let's add some more randomness into there. Let us add in the possibility that the flank and players could be offset by different amounts. Right now we have perfect 45 degrees. Let's do 40, 45, and 50. You know, and you could, if you have the space, you could do more in between this. We're just doing these 3 because automatically, just by making this a length of 3 from a length of 1 and having 3 different possible angular offsets, we're tripling the number of player starting configurations for team games, but that's okay. So this will take effect actually in 3v3s and 4v4s. So we generate it, hit go, and as you can see, this guy now, purple, is really far away from orange, and he's actually closer to yellow. Okay, so
hey, Tech.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize, but I'm actually gonna have to head out. Something came up, but
oh, all right.
I want to say, this is really interesting. There's like a lot going on, but this is really interesting. I think I might at least use the land, like at the very least. That is really interesting to see how you can generate in like a grid. I'm gonna have to take some time to like muddle over this, but I'll let you know if I have any questions. But I appreciate for sure you giving me access to all of this at all. This is super cool.
Sure thing.
And I appreciate it. But yeah, sorry, I gotta go. Unfortunately, something happened.
All right. Well, happy scripting, and give it a try, and let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah. But I appreciate it again. I'll take a look at this. I'll let you know if I have any issues. I'm sure I'll write another parentheses instead of curly bracket or something again. Mm-hmm. But thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Sure thing.
I'll catch you around.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.
All right. So he will probably watch the rest of the stream later, but we'll continue along with some of the basic things that we've got set up here. So you can see how the flank and pocket, their positioning changes depending on this. We're going to try to keep this as lean as possible, actually, for now. We can always bake more randomness into it later, but I'm just, I'm including the minimum and the maximum here just so that we can see the effects. We don't want people like spawning in lakes and stuff like that. All right, 180 degrees. We're not going to mess with this for now. We're going to see if we can pull the players together a little bit. Let's see. This one is the clocking. Looks like we got the clocking right. This we cannot mess with. Team biases. So what is this? This is basically our ability to pull the teams together. Generally, this goes somewhere between 0 and 0.2. It's a pretty powerful parameter. So for instance, if we did 0.25, you could go a little bit higher than that, but we're just going to hit go on it for now. Okay, and this will pull the players together. So as you can see, teammates are now closer together. It's basically taken the entire angle that the team exists in, and it has multiplied it by the bias minus or subtracted from 1. So they're now 75% of that total angle that they started out in. It's kind of pulled them together like that, which is probably a little bit more reasonable. Okay. If we wanted the team to not always start directly across from each other, we could put something like 160 degrees in here, and we could run that. And as you can see now, this is kind of pulling them a little bit closer to, well, to the mounds with the gold on them, and pulling them a little bit further away from the ponds which could potentially have fish in them. Or we could bump this up plus 20 degrees, and then we do the opposite. We expect the opposite to happen. the players to be biased toward the pawns instead. Okay, you can see that the players are biased toward pawns, but there is like a little bit of randomness with the radius working its way in. See, that looks a little bit more like what you saw earlier, huh? So, again, any combination of these, and it will do it. I don't want to mess with making it eccentric now for the purposes of this tutorial, but what I think that we're going to do is we're going to assure a team bias between, let's just add some numbers here and just, you know, get something that looks like it's going to work. $160, $180. Do you have implicit terms assigned at this point, or is everyone essentially unteamed? Good question. So at this point, everyone is unteamed. You can't assign teams in RMS. The way that it works is it will do its best to do like team positioning. It'll account for team positioning, like the colors that you see here. It will require, if you want to be on a team with people, with team positioning selected, and you're playing more than 4 players, it will require that orange, purple, yellow, and red all be on the same team. So for instance, if you want to be a teammate with cyan, then you're going to start on opposite sides of the map. So it basically assumes when team positions is selected that you are on a team with the correct colors. If team positions is not selected, then it will put you on the same side as your teammates regardless of the colors that are picked. Hopefully that answers your question. And for cases of 4v4 or lower, it doesn't matter whether or not you pick team positions because everybody's flank in that case. So therefore, color will not matter. If you pick team positions and somebody is playing as orange, but you're only playing a 3v3, then orange will not spawn. So there is that limitation. You have to be careful. But we have basically introduced, we had this complexity. Okay, you know, we're going to have an array of lands here. We're going to have an array of lands over here. And we're going to make sure that it's fair for both teams. And we have provided a map that can reasonably do that, as long as the players aren't crazy or not paying attention. You know, operating within the norms of what's expected. Okay. So we've got these ranges set up. Let's go back and bake more randomness into this. 21, 22, 23 for the different radii. We're going to do 42.5, and then we're going to do 47.5 for this one, and then we're going to do 170 for this, and then 190 for this, just to make it really feel truly random. And I think this will be good for now. This isn't really a lot of stuff, but it's enough to give a random feel to it, you know, to make it feel like you're using random placement, but you're not really using random placement. So it's executing the run, 10 lands. These are the neutral lands. That's all done. And it's got all these positions stashed in here. It's got a number of team positions. Let's see the file size. It's 583 kilobytes, which is not terrible. It's not great, but it's okay. So now we should be able to hit generate and show you, you know, it behaves like a normal map. And we should be able to test it too on the different map sizes. And if it is too close on some of the other sizes, then we may have to, you know, pull things in, maybe decrease the radius slightly, increase the team bias, whatever we want to do. But this looks reasonable for now. So now let's just go down to the 6v6, or sorry, 3v3. And we'll test the number of players for that. Make sure that people aren't too close. Now it looks like it's going to be okay, right? Nobody's intersecting. We'll do a few more generations for that. You know, I might have to fine tune it, but it's for now. It looks like it's okay. I haven't seen anything terribly offensive because really we tested, we really tested the boundaries earlier. So it's always important when you're testing boundaries, don't waste time. Don't, like, fill up a bunch of randomness in between. Really test the limits, because if it's going to work for the limits, it'll work for anything that's in between those limits. That's Engineering 101. Okay, so, yeah, the 3v3 looks alright. We've done a few generations for that. Let's get a feel for what the 4v4 looks like. Number of players, 4. Yeah, in this case, the team is, closer. The teams are closer to the pawns, but that's okay. It's fair. That's the important part, is that it is fair. Okay, good. And then finally, 2v2. Sorry, 1v1. Alright, well, that's splitting it down the middle pretty well, huh? Hey, Zerg, hello. Welcome. Yep. It looks like we're not doing any game-breaking positions here. Looks like everybody's spawning pretty fairly. Unfortunately, if you really feel like you need a different set of variables for different sizes, then you have to sort of hard code that in a little bit later. All right, so we're just gonna lean this up a little bit, I think. It has been a while. I think I can run AoE 2 multiplayer off a hotspot. I don't know. I've never tried it. I doubt it. Sounds like Zerg is out in the wilderness somewhere. Yeah, so we're going to lean this up just a little bit because of what I plan to do next. So maybe we pull the radius in just a little bit, although, that's kind of what makes it interesting. So maybe we just... yeah, I really want it all. All right, I'll tell you what. We'll go off and we'll do our other thing, and we'll see if we can afford... I don't really think we can. That's the thing. That's the thing. We can't really afford it. All right, you know what? Let's get rid of these two, and that should lean us up a little bit. We're at something like 400 kilobytes for now. So we'll save that. And yeah, let's see where we're at. No, 583. So let's rerun this and see if we can get down for 583. Zerg says he's out farming, and it's pretty out there right now. Oh, I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that it is. It's your home. There's something very pretty about home. Okay, so we're all set. Let's check the file size. 354. Okay, that's a little bit more reasonable. We could potentially work with that. Even that might be too much. But it's a lot. Okay. So what do I want to do now? Well, you see, this potentially could be a good Age of Empires map, but I think it could be even better if we had rotation around the center. You see, I think that it would be somewhat cool to introduce the possibility of a free area here. An area that's maybe on the other side of these rocky mounds, but, it's not necessarily part of the Rocky Mounds themselves. Right now, you've pretty much got the same amount of space, regardless of where you are. So let's introduce a rotation if we can. So, to do that, if I recall correctly, we have to come up here, and we're going to go into the function library. I'm going to see if we can find, let's see, rotate and trim, maybe? And it looks like we got some different options. that I have tried over the years. And let's see if we can open them up. Maybe rotate and trim is the right one. I guess we'll find out. Let's see. Oh, is this the one that we want to use? This one was made in 2021. Star Wars Battlegrounds? I don't know about that, Caesar. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, so I don't know about this one. If we did simple rotate, maybe? Okay. Yep. This is what we want. So we want simple rotate, you guys. Archers shoot laser beams. Okay. So this has got a rotation matrix in it and everything. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to... We're going to not run this. Just because we're gonna bake this in later. So we're gonna just say that CPL, CPL create player lands is nothing for now. So if we do that and we run it, we should be able to get rid of those created player lands easily enough. So let's see, it's thinking, and then we should, after running it, confirm that the player lands go away. They do. So now this leaves us a little bit more freedom to try to rotate this. Wookiee Berserker, exactly. Slightly less hair, too. You ever write a sand dune generator, like crescent-shaped hills that players can try to take control of? It could be done. I've done something similar to that, yes. I did it. They weren't hills, they were lakes. And it was for Lansois Marinensis. It was a map that Hugh Coyote worked on. But yes, you could do that with this. Alright, so we've got kind of this array pattern here. We need to rotate it. And this is the function that we're going to use. We're going to use simple rotate. And let's see here. So I think we should just be able to copy this. It has a variable number of input arguments. We need to give it the X position, the Y position, the angle of rotation is the third one, and then the fourth one is the center of rotation. And if we don't provide the fourth argument, then it will assume that the center is the average of everything. So we're definitely going to provide it a center of rotation here. So let's copy this, and we'll get this going into our script. Okay. Wherever our script is. Here we go. Okay. So we've got XB and YB established up here. And we're going to paste that. Okay. And now let's be a little bit careful. We don't want to establish... We don't want to like set what the fields are just yet. We want to do the rotation first and then establish the fields. So... we're actually gonna do this and then this, and we're basically gonna make these new variables, if you will. Oops. The G's are fine though. Growth is fine. In fact, we don't need to necessarily even say that right here. We can say this anywhere, and let's kind of clear this out for simplicity purposes. So we'll cut that out. And we'll paste that down here, and it doesn't really matter. Alright. And so there's X and there's Y. And remember what these growths were for. We explained them earlier in the video. Okay. Let's save. Okay, so we have LXB, we have LX, or LYB. So we need LXB, LYB, Okay, and this is just taking points. This is before we ever get any involvement from any structures or saving data or anything like that. The third thing that we need is angle theta of rotation. We'll call angle theta equal to 0 for now, but we're going to just test it out on different angles later. And then finally, the center of rotation, which we're going to call 50-50, because that's what it is. It's what we're rotating around. So 50, 50. And really, I should do a better job of clearing up all these different redundant functions, but I've been spending my time on other things because I actually don't make many maps anymore. I kind of miss it. It's sad because I did put a lot of work into that, but the tournament is just so demanding that don't have as much time for it. Okay, so we're going to say that this is going to be LXB. So basically, we're going to overwrite what we had before, and LYB. Okay. Because these are regarded as outputs to this function. And then finally, L.xb is equal to LXB, and L.yb is equal to LYB. Alright, so then we finally load it into the structure. So the first thing is just to check and make sure that the code compiles, that we're not doing anything wrong here, that simple rotate is going to work as intended. So let's do that. Let's run it. And it should be okay. Ah! No. It doesn't want it. Okay. So here's the problem. A dimensional mismatch. You see, this thing has not yet gone through and made sure that everything is the right size. So, even though we kind of do that later, I guess we're going to have to do it now if we want to rotate stuff. So, we need to, because yeah, these are different sizes, right? This is a 1x2 array, and this is a 5x1 array. So these are expecting them to be the same size, and we do map them to be the same size, but we don't do it until they're all the way down here. So we have a choice. We can basically use this and then kind of like reuse it, or we can just do things the right way first. And I think we're going to do things the right way first. So we're going to take this here, and we're going to try to expand this into a proper matrix for both of them. Okay, so we have number of points. We got 5 points across. We got the 2 points there. Okay, so let's see. LXB is equal to the 2080, so that's loading in right, and LYB, just to show you, is equal to that. So we got to remember our matrix operations correctly here. Times linspace, no, times ones, because we want to expand it. And let's do ny, comma 1, and probably I'm not thinking about this correctly, but we'll just copy that and we'll just try it, because I don't want to think about it right now. Nope, that's not it. It's all just about valid matrix multiplication. Okay, there we go. So that's what we needed. And then this one is the one that's going to have ones of 1x2 multiplied in it. So ones, 1, comma 2. So ones of 1, comma 2 is basically just a ones. I'll just show you. It's basically just a single row with ones and ones on it. Okay, so it's just like that. Single row. There's 1, 1 to the left, and there's 1, 1 to the right. And then when we multiply it by this, we should get something that's the same size as the other one. Yep. So now the product, both of the products will be a 5x2 matrix, which is what we're looking for. All right. So now we hit go. And it works. It compiles properly. So we should be able to come in here and we should hit generate, and we can see these lands have not rotated because we didn't order any rotation. So that's good. So now let's order some rotation. So let's come in here and let's say that we want a 45-degree rotation now. Save. Okay, so it all compiles again. Now, did we achieve the rotation that we were looking for? Yes, we did. Now you can see from this that there is somewhat of a slight bias here because they still have the border avoidance that we gave earlier. So with that border avoidance, you can tell that they really don't want. Some of the bases are like trying to be placed down here, but it doesn't really want to place the bases down there. But that's okay. I mean, that's kind of a sort of a solvable problem. We could potentially move them in a little bit more if we wanted to, but we've already set up the player lands where they are, so that's a little bit controversial for us. So maybe what we simply do is we just kind of limit the scope of these. Yes, that's exactly what I did, Tazinator, essentially. Because the land positions are controlled by a matrix in this, and that matrix is loaded in as a field to the structure. See? Aren't you glad you were paying attention in math class? Alright, so you know what? Let's do something very simple. So let's set this back to 0 so I can see it a little bit more easily. Run it, you know, it'll be done in less than 2 seconds again. Okay. So this is back the way that it was. And let's exclude maybe the first and last. Let's do 3 points instead. So let's do ny is equal to 3. And we should just be able to change that to 3 right there. And hit run, and then we'll end up with 3 pawns instead of 5. And there they are. And then we can decrease the span of those pawns. So we could come over here now, and we could be like, all right, you know, we're going to have the pawns, instead of going from 10 to 90, we're going to have the pawns go from 30 to 70. Hey, Ronald, thank you so much for voting, man. Love you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to close the voting as soon as I'm done presenting here. Okay, so let's see how this works. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for voting, Ronald. Okay, that works. That's could be a little bit better, right? Let's rotate that and see if we have any cutoffs, but I don't think we're going to have any cutoffs. So we're going to try rotating that now. This is just, you know, a crazy example. I don't know anybody that would want to make a map like this, but there could be some guy out there that's like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's voting for the map contest, Tazinator. You know, we have different people that have put different amounts of work into the maps, and now that it's up to the community to look at them. Yeah, it's really simple. I even told friends of mine that are not Age of Empires players that know very little about Age of Empires and don't care, just go vote. You know, it's a PowerPoint presentation. It's pretty easy. Okay, so as you can see, we've got this rotation. I think this is about reasonable. We could potentially like try to stretch it. We could even like probably get rid of the border avoidance, or we could do something where we have a different number of pawns or mounds depending on the situation. You know, it doesn't really matter. But I'm here to prove a point, and the point that I want to prove is that we can totally have a situation where these pawns rotate. This is totally fine, but now we need to capture a situation where all of the pawns could rotate. So now what we're going to do, and this is going to be kind of loaded in as our dynamic list. Let's look at this and think about this for a moment. So, should be the most recent one. Yep. So let's see here. We got this, you know, remember from this ancient grid that we have? We don't need that anymore. Let's kind of clear some stuff out here and make some space for me to for me to work on it. We got some simple function to point things and simple... Oh, we got simple rotate right here. Well, dang, I was looking for that earlier. Oh, I guess we don't need it anymore. We got a second land scribe that we don't really need anymore, so we're going to get rid of that. Now, this we are going to need. Command J of XY. And we got CPL tacked on to the end of that. Yeah. So Tazinator's asking, are you able to manually draw a connection between, just say, 2 of the 3 pawns? Yes, technically you could, but I don't really know why you would do that. You could, like, connect all non-player lands or something like that. I hadn't really thought about it for this application. Always throw more lands at things to get things to work. Okay. So right now I'm focusing on... Let's get rid of this function of points. We're not going to use that. We've already got this. That's fine. Create player lands is set to... Oops. Actually, we do want this. Let's see. We're going to get rid of this. Don't need that. And we're scribing some basic land stuff. Okay, so we're going to have, like, we're going to label things. We're going to call this, like, basic land layout or something. And there's probably maybe a smarter way of doing it, you know, except when it comes to, like, these different land generations. Maybe we have some information outside, you know. I'm going to actually just keep all of this for now. We can always make it more efficient later. All right. So I'm going to put that there. Sizing arguments. Landscribe v6. All right. So we got geometric arguments. So we have this variable right here, which is the clocking. And this is going to be very important because what we're going to do is we're essentially going to adjust the clocking of this player land construction to match whatever particular orientation we happen to have for these extra lands that we're creating. And in that way, we can guarantee variety. All right. So, and that variety is fair. Let's see. So I guess we make ourselves a loop. Okay. Of course, it's selected. If it's selected randomly, maybe the connection crosses the middle one. Yeah, hard to guarantee. All right, so 4, and we're gonna have fork. I don't really have any other loops in here, do we? Yeah. All right. So for I equals 1 to length of theta. End. Okay, and so we're going to introduce the possibility that, let's say, theta could be 0 or 45 or 90, right? Those are the 3 options for now. We're going to let it do this 3 times, and we're going to take all this basic land information, and we're going to put it inside of our for loop. We're going to tab that to help us follow the hierarchy here. And let's see, so we're going to generate some information. We're going to generate this land matrix. We're going to need to generate a set of commands associated with that. And this is going to get into, like, dynamic list territory. So right now, that is set to empty. And we're going to set this to empty instead, the static list. And we're going to say because basically what dynamic list is expecting, or the way that I've set it up, what this RMS RS random statement version 2 is expecting is that whatever this input is for command, as it's called, this is actually a structure that consists of various lists of commands. So where did that go? Here it is. So this line right here, we're going to cut this out and we're going to paste this up here. Oops. We're going to note that we're talking in terms of I instead of J. So we're going to make this equal to I for now. All right. And we're going to have RMS processor v6, and it's going to be LM underscore L. Okay, so LM underscore L is determined here. And then CPL is the create player lands. And for now, we're just going to say that CPL is nothing. It's just empty. For now, we're not doing any player lands now, but this is just to get those different rotations possible. All right. And then should all be mostly cleared out and ready to go. Yeah, we don't really need that right now. Okay, so this dynamic list, and the options are, we have to specify that we just have theta in here as one of the random variable options. All right, and then everything else can stay. C for command, again, it's expecting a structure with just a list of instructions in it. And I think that we're good to go. So let's run this and see what happens. Uh-oh. All right. Oh, I remember. We have to clear L each time after we run the loop. It's just a dumb limitation. All right. 85. What's the matter? 34. Oh. All right, we're up here. So LXB and LYB. Oh, these aren't, They're different sizes now? How did that happen? We didn't change anything. All right, let's copy this and see what happens. Paste this into compute this. Okay, so that's 3 by 2. And this should be 3 by 2 as well. Oh, duh. We need to specify that we are talking about the angle of I. So we will only want it to look at one angle right now. It can't rotate by all three of them at the same time. That would be ridiculous. All right, now let's do it. Should work just fine. Excellent. So as you can see, it generates the 3 rotations. It does the 6 lands for each. If we go and check the script file, you can see that we've got these, and they're just in a different setup each time. Okay, and what happens is it defines that there's a 33% chance of each of these different possible rotations because there are 3 different angles, and then whichever one of these it picked randomly, it will go in and do that if it's true. So it could pick C1 randomly, and then it'll do this first one. It could pick C2 randomly, and then it'll do this second one, so on and so forth. So with that shown, let's do some generations. So as you can see, the lakes are now rotating properly. And they're avoiding the edge of the map properly because that's kind of what we specified. That was one of our requirements. Okay, the lakes are the same separation distance, so they should have space for the players in between them. And now let's see if we can add the players back in. That's kind of the more time-intensive part. So we have all of this player information that we want. Let's start getting rid of some of this stuff. So we don't have this. We don't need this. If it's commented out, we don't need it, right? Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this because we're going to be adding the players back in for real now. Let's condense this. All right, so this is where the player lands are being declared. we basically have all of this information we don't need here, right? We can declare that before we ever do anything. So we got that angle right there, and I guess we'll just kind of keep that angle there, and we'll declare the basic player land stuff here. All right, so this is the data about the player lands, and now we could copy in the instructions. That's fine. Everybody likes to see some notes and stuff like that. But even though we're declaring these variables for the player lands first, we can't declare them all, because the last variable is whatever the angle of rotation, the seed angle, happens to be, and we've got 3 different options for that. So we want this command to be inside of our loop, and this command needs to go right here. It could really go anywhere, to be honest. So we're going to generate CPL, and CPL is going to depend on whatever G is, and G got C. Where's G? Uh-oh. All right, here it is. Good. I thought I deleted it for a moment. I was scared. I have to remake it because we already figured out what stuff works. Okay, so then we're going to put G right in front of it. So G requires us, we got all these different geometric inputs that we figured out, right? We figured out the different radiuses. We figured out the flank to pocket offsets. We figured out how far, angularly, how far apart the different teams should be. But this right here is the key. We need to allow this to be adaptive to whatever particular rotation we have for these ponds. So for this one, we're going to put theta of I. We got to be a little bit careful here too. So for instance, this is expecting a number, so we're going to have the squiggly brackets here and here, and we're actually going to store theta as a cell. It's going to have 0, 45, and then 90. Okay, so if you store them as cells like this, and then you got the squiggly brackets around whatever index they are, it'll pull them out of the cell. But for this thing, it's actually expecting a cell in this location. So therefore, we leave the smooth brackets. It's a little bit confusing. All right, and now let's hit go. And this will greatly increase the file size and the complexity. Really hard to check. But as long as it compiles, it should work. So you can note that it's taking a little bit longer to think about it because it's setting up the player lands in addition to these 6 neutral lands. Okay, good. So that's all set. So now we go back to, let's check our file size first of all. Remember, if we were at 400 earlier, I guess we have slightly fewer lakes, but it doesn't make that big of a, it's not that big of a deal. But we need to go back and we need to look at the file size here. We just need to make sure that our map is not like too massive. So this is 1400 kilobytes. I mean, you look at this and it's like, why? It's a very simple map. Well, we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot behind the scenes, and the players totally take it for granted. The people that make the maps for high-level competitions could make something like this, but it would take them a very long time to make, and they probably just wouldn't do it. And if they did do it, they certainly would not tinker with it and change it, because like if we didn't like this, we could just change a number and hit run and it would reset everything. All right, so let's see that we're actually getting something for all this bragging, this 1400 kilobytes. And so we hit generate, and we note that the players are in that location. So again, a fair spawn. Let's hit generate again. Oh, look at that, another fair spawn. Let's hit generate again. Another fair spawn. Looks like they're always next to the hills, which is unfortunate. So they're a little bit further away in that case. Another hill bias spawn. But they are at least adapting with the pond location. Okay, now they're biased toward the lakes. Here I was just about to go and intervene with that, but I guess that's okay. So it's just, the random number generated in Age of Empires is not perfect. But if we went up to something like, 8 players, and we did an 8-player map size, just so you guys can see. And again, we got a lot more room, right? We on an 8-player map, we could have had lakes here. This is something that you can program it all in, right? You can say, if large map, do this instead. All right, so hopefully that gives you a taste of what we can accomplish by having the direct placement, hybrid random direct placement technique working with neutral lands. It's all preordained. It's all figured out and precompiled in advance. Looking for a 45-degree rotation. We should also see if we can make it a little bit leaner. Okay, so let's see if we can kind of rework things a little bit. We don't want it to be predictable that the lakes are always on one side. So I think what I really want to do is I want to get rid of this 21 and 23. I don't think that that's adding very much. And then we'll get rid of this 170 and 190 for now, just to make the file leaner. Okay, and that should help a lot, actually. And then we'll also do something where we maybe increase the number of... Oh, you know what? This is why I don't want to do it this way. So let's have 0, 45, 90, right? We were setting that, and this is expecting... something in cell packaging, so we'll package that in the cell. And then we had one more place where we were supposed to... here we go. Alright, and this is expecting a number. So we'll switch over this format again. Sorry for the confusion, because we actually want to go from... We actually want to go all the way up to 180. So we want to go from, like, linspace... We want to go from 0 to 180, and maybe we give it I don't know, 12 different rotations. So if we look and see what angles this includes, we should have some pretty odd angles in here, actually. Could be kind of nice. Oh, let's get rid of this square bracket. We don't want that screwing us up. Paste. Yeah, that's a little bit messy, huh? Let's maybe do 11. Yeah. Well, 11 doesn't really include the 45, does it? Maybe we do 13. There we go. Now, I think 13, though, is going to be way too much. I don't think that this thing can handle it. Maybe it can. Okay. That's why we're going to test it. You can kind of guess based on how big a single one was, but we're reducing the number of player spawn instructions. So... it's going to be generating 13 different angles here. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm kind of an idiot. Let's... No, because 180 is that going to be the same? No, I guess it's... Let's just go. Let's just go. It'll be fine. If 180 is the same as 0, but it's not, then we have ways of correcting for that. So it's thinking about it, setting everything up. 6 lands. Some of you have faster computers than I do. Maybe other scripters will be able to execute this much more quickly. Thinking some more. It'll do it. I sure hope that this isn't too massive, otherwise we'll have to redo this. Because otherwise it'll take forever for the map to generate. And then after this we'll do the objects generation and I'll cut you guys loose. Alright, so let's see. What's our file size? About 1800 kilobytes. That should be okay. Unfortunately, the game has gotten worse, not better, at handling larger map sizes. But as you can see, here's an angle that's, you know, between 0 and 45 degrees, whatever. Okay? So the teams are fairly positioned. The only disadvantage is you don't really know whether or not you're going to get the pond or whether or not you're going to get the hill, so be sure to choose a versatile civilization. Optimistically speaking, assuming your program is single-threaded, can't be that much faster. Most speed increases are either on increased cache size, more power efficiency, and more cores. Well, I've actually seen other people with faster computers than me run these programs much faster than I can. For instance, BP Dredge, who scripted for us earlier on in the league's infancy, had access to these programs and was able to execute this much faster. The same types of scripts much faster than I could, and we were working on similar ones. Okay. So this is all set up. Let's add some forests. Just because I'm a random map maker, I don't want to look at a blank screen. I gotta have some forests in there, you guys. So we're gonna add a few forests, and then I'm gonna show you the objects generation, and we'll call it a day. I totally meant to work on an NYS map, but I didn't get the chance. It just kind of didn't go in that direction. Oh well. But you could. There's so much potential. You can do a lot of stuff. All right, so let's come up here and let's do create terrain. We're gonna go. Let's say forest. Base terrain. BT, I guess. Land percent. We're gonna do like 10%. Number of clumps. 24. Is it scale by groups? That's fine. No need for height limits, but we are gonna set avoid player start areas. 16. And we could do like a more advanced method in generating the same number of forests for each player, but you know, you can get that from other creators, other people. You don't need any special tools or anything like that. So other people have already got that pretty well covered, I think. So I'm not going to do it here. Okay, so we got some forests. The forests are properly avoiding the player lands as they should. We should probably have space in other terrain types as well, just to make sure that the forests aren't too close to the ponds. Although I kind of like the forests next to the ponds. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But what I want to show you next pertains to object generation. So let's assume that we go through, right, and we've got our land set up, we've got all of our terrain set up. Obviously, this is not a real TechChariot map. If it were, it would not look like this. So we would have much more, like we would have way prettier terrains. Everything would be layered. We would have the same number of forests for each player, etc., etc. But we're going to assume that that's already been done, because I think that this starting point represents pretty good constraints that most people will be working with. So where is that powered? Well, that is powered down here. Object Autoscriber. Okay, and this Object Autoscriber is quite wonderful. It's a very, very useful thing. And we just need to make sure that we have the correct name in here. So we're going to change the name, and we're going to change it to Advanced RMS Example. Oops. And, okay. So that is the same as our spreadsheet, and that is what we require. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to get rid of this town center. We don't need this anymore. We're going to add that to our spreadsheet later. And let's do some things with this spreadsheet. Let's open the spreadsheet now, because we are ready for it. Okay, it is opening. Thank you guys for being here. Hopefully this is an informative presentation on some of the stuff that our community can do. Some folks that have really been helping us out in the community have gained access to these programs. All right. So this is just a regular LibreOffice.ods file spreadsheet. Nothing too fancy about it. You will require LibreOffice. I do not believe it works with Excel. It might work with Excel, though. You could try it, because Excel is just a wrapper. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We've got all this extra junk in here. We're going to get rid of this. We don't need this. This is left over from previous projects. And we're going to delete that. And we're going to keep whatever we have in row number 1. We're going to insert some other rows. And this thing will only generate the object. And we basically have every argument for objects, at least at a time. You know, they keep on adding more options for creating objects, and I can't keep up with the spreadsheet. At least I probably could, but I haven't kept up very well. There's some stuff, but we have most of the stuff that we need here. Alright, so anytime that you give a number down here, it's going to be looking for the object. So in that way you can kind of have a scrapbook of stuff down here that you're not doing anything with. And as long as you don't give it a number, it won't try making it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a Gaia market in the exact center of the map. And to do that, we're going to specify that we want the X position to be at 50%, Y position at 50%, and we're going to place this market inside of that location. And I think that we're pretty much good to go. We're going to make sure that it's indestructible. So make indestructible here. Override 5 closest. We don't need that. We don't need force placement. Let's see. We don't need a lot of this stuff. You'll see what the scale factor for the radius is in just a moment. But we're going to set up that market first. And then actually, just to kind of prove my point, I guess, we'll... around the market, we're going to have some, like, Gaia archers guarding it, just for fun, just to kind of show you what we have. So, or we could set up the Gaia units in a different way. There's really all kinds of different options. I guess we'll set it up the first way, and then we'll set it up another way. So we're going to have the first object be Archer. And we're going to set these up as neutral Gaia unconvertible objects. And so we're going to copy this. We're actually going to copy all of this pretty much. And we're going to copy it. We're going to paste it here. So we want these archers that are guarding the Gaia market to be centered at 50-50 as well. But we're going to give them a group placement radius of... well, you know, we could place them in the corner of the map too, for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter. But we'll give them a group placement radius of like 5. Scenario radius scale factor, we're going to leave that at 1, so it's always going to be 5 regardless of what happens. Just to kind of demonstrate what's going on here. How many archers are we going to have, I think, is the real question. Well, we should have 9320 groups, and the scaling type is going to be according to map. Oops. Map size, and then we're going to give them... well, the problem with this is that there could be a forest in the way. So we'll see what happens. But this is, again, to give you a taste of what's going on. We could always put a land in the middle that this stuff spawns on. All right, Tempman distance group placement. We're going to give a distance of like 4, scaling factor of 1. All right, actually, no, not 4. That's way too much. How about 2? All right, so these forests could actually be kind of messing with it, so we might have to comment them out just so you can see. All right, so now to run this and to get our market guarded by archers, what do we do? Well, we come up here, and assuming that we've already run this random map script and like this is already initialized and everything, we just take this line and we just copy it and we paste it down here, and that's it. And it'll generate what's in the Excel grid, or the Excel spreadsheet, I should say. So think about it, and it'll place these objects within the begin and end objects autoscribe lines within the script. So it's still thinking about it. Okay, this throws an error. A warning about how they're going to change the coding. Wonderful. It's just one more thing I have to update later. All right, so the idea is it'll end up in the center of the map. We might have to suppress the forests, but that's okay. All right, so it's done. Once it brings the spreadsheet back up, that means it's done. So now let's hit generate and see what we've got. Aha! All right, so we've got a market guarded by some archers. That's awesome. Sometimes the forest could be there. Who knows? Might block the market at some point, from time to time. But whatever. It's here. Now, could we have done that a little bit more smartly? I think we could have, right? We don't need these archers to be constrained within an absolute position at this point, because really their intention is to be attached to the market. So instead of telling the archers to spawn at a specific location, we will tell them, we'll get rid of all this junk here. We will instead tell them to spawn, within, actually, let's copy this, and we can actually compare. So we've got these archers, and then we'll copy everything here, and we'll do man-at-arms, or we'll do like scouts or something whose pre-definition I can remember. And we'll copy this. Paste that there. All right, map size. Scales to map size as well. Okay, and let's get rid of this, because this is going to make it default to a scenario style. And we're going to do crossbowmen. I think that works. Hopefully that works. And now copy this, and we're going to place that here. Place within this actor area of, and we're going to make sure that we're pointing to the market, which we are. And we're going to have a distance of 5, and then a scale factor of 1. And these crossbowmen are going to have the same properties as the archers, because we copied that row. They have a Tempman distance group placement of 1, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So now, let's run it again. So we're going to compare the positions of the crossbowmen to the positions of the archers. And we're going to see if we get them in the same spot. Processing it. Writing the file. Now, I would think I want to explain something here, and that is for the else configuration. So if you have multiple tabs, they will be taken as different contingencies within the same conditional statement. So for instance, if we had like a low resources tab it would generate all the objects in the configuration that we specify for the low resources tab, or for the low resources condition. And if low resources were not true, then it would generate all of the objects in else. So it kind of gives you a cool option to set up a different set of objects depending on a situation. All right, let's see. Let's keep this seed and hit generate. All right, so you can see that we've got archers and we've got crossbowmen here. Now, I guess the archer spawn is a little bit more robust than the crossbowman spawn. Does anybody in chat know why? I'll do some generations here, and I'll see if I can give you a little bit of a hint. Oh, here it is right here. I guess it's revealed to you why. It's because if the market fails to spawn, the position of the crossbow is dependent upon that. Whereas with the archer spawn, the archers are always going to be created within that actor area that's close to the center of the map, regardless of whether or not the market happens to be there. So we got a generation of these forests where a forest is blocking the center of the map and therefore preventing the market from spawning. And because the market didn't spawn, the crossbowmen can't spawn, because the crossbowmen have to be within 5 tiles of the market, and if the market doesn't exist, the crossbowmen can't either. So, I mean, either way, that just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. So, let us just, we don't really care about this market. I'm just proving a point. So, I'm going to get rid of this market, actually. And I'm going to delete this row, and I'm going to set this equal to 1 and this equal to 2. And I'm actually also going to get rid of the crossbowmen as well. Because what we want is we want to generate a town center now. So we want to generate the town centers. Because without generating, I guess these, we can kind of see that there's clearings and there's hills. So the player lands are being generated properly, right? But there's no town center there because we're not ordering one. So this is where we can come over here and we can say, you know, create this. Town center. Player assigned, player owned. No scaling at all, because we always want players to have only one town center regardless of the map size. And we don't put anything in for like the Tempman distance group placement or forest distance or anything like that, because there's only one group and the forests are already being told to stay away. And then actor area information we don't need. If we set this up as is, it will just assume that this town center is to exist at the closest location to player lands, the origin of player lands, if you will. So now we can go ahead and generate. And we don't have to do these rows one at a time. We could theoretically set up the entire map in the spreadsheet and then hit go, and it just crunches it once. But I like to start out small and build on it, even though it takes more time. It's if something isn't going to work, it's easier for me to identify that early on and be like, okay, we're going to make sure that this works before we move on to the next part of the map. Because if we move on to the next part of the map and we're hoping that something is supposed to work but it's not spawning properly, then that can create all kinds of problems. So now you should be able to see that the town centers are going to show up on top of their respective mounts. Okay, and we've got these archers in the middle here guarding, you know, that, whatever. So what I like to do is I like to actually set up all the neutral objects and lands and stuff first before the player town centers. But for the purposes of this demonstration, it doesn't really matter. We can come over here now and let's do a couple of things. Let's get these ponds right. So maybe we come over here to our spreadsheet and maybe we have, you know, maybe we pull down a couple of different rows. And let's do shorefish. Let's just give you an example of some neutral resources to set up. And let's scroll left again. And we're going to want neutral Gaia convertible for these shorefish. Can you convert shorefish? No, of course not, but you don't need unconvertible for shorefish, because shorefish could never be converted. So we're going to tell it to spawn an infinite number of groups. Obviously, that's not going to be true. We're going to tell them to spawn on water, although we may not necessarily even need to. And then distance to other zones, we're going to have 1. I think that should put the shorefish right next to the coastline. If it doesn't, then we may have to intervene. Do the shorefish require any kind of actor area stuff? No, because they're being generated so early on, and they're in the ponds, and they don't need to avoid the archers of the town center, because the archers are on land and the shorefish are not, and the town centers are also on land without the shorefish. So, all right, so that should be good for the shorefish. Now let's copy this. Paste that there. Oh, one more thing. We need to give these shorefish a temp min distance group placement of 2. Or maybe more than that, maybe like 3. To make sure that the shorefish, they're spaced well. Otherwise, they're just going to be everywhere. You won't be able to dock, which could be an interesting, design choice. And let's give this one 3 as well, but this is going to be our gold. Now, we have to be a little bit careful here, because gold, you cannot by default place gold on DLC rocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the on-grid placeholder, and then we're going to do gold as a second object. And the on-grid placeholder, this object type only refers to the first object, so we're going to make the on-grid placeholder unconvertible. So I don't think anybody would convert them anyway. But we'll put DLC rock here for the terrain. And distance to other zones, we don't need to specify anything for that. And now let's see what happens. Now that we've gotten these basic objects, let's test this. Can we get our gold and our shorefish? Oh! We could probably do just regular deep fish, but let's just do this for now. So we hit generate. Our computer is going to think about it for a little bit. And then it's going to return the answer to us. Okay, all set. Launching the spreadsheet now. Confirms that it's done. Closes the spreadsheet. Unfortunately, it'll close all spreadsheets when it does this. Just somewhat of an annoying little feature that it has that I haven't debugged. Alright, so let's see here. So we've got the gold, and the gold is showing up, and that's good stuff, just random gold piles, right, on our rocky mounds. You can't build a mining camp on this, but I guess you could build mining camps around it. Somebody could maybe argue that the Armenians and Georgians have a slight advantage. I miss the good old days when Armenians and Georgians were not a thing. Oh! Look at this, no shorefish at all. So we might have to use some second object magic to make those appear. Could be struggling or having a hard time, so that's why I do this one at a time. Otherwise, I can forget stuff. All right, so let us. I already know what's going to happen, but let's go to on grid and let's do shorefish. And they're being placed on water, and I guess we don't need distance to other zones, whatever. It's the on-grid placeholder. And let us hit generate now, or we'll run the object code. I know you guys might not be thinking that this has many advantages so far. And it's true that the advantages for this have withered over time as the devs have added some more features, but it's definitely still quite relevant. It's definitely not obsolete. I mean, the interface alone is just a huge advantage because it basically is a big spreadsheet overlay of everything that you've got going on in that map. It tells you everything that you did in one place. It's easy to see. All right, let's generate now. See if we can get those shorefish back. So those shorefish aren't just shorefish. I mean, they're everywhere fish, right? I mean, look at this. Look at this. It's just like, okay, no rules, you know, we're just going to put them down anywhere that there's water. It doesn't have the ability to do anything differently. Now, if we were simple, what we would do is we would layer some water on top of, or some deep water on top of this water, so that water terrain itself does not exist in here and the shorefish cannot spawn in the middle. So I'll give you an example. So let's say that I wanted to come down here and I were to create terrain medium water, and base terrain is going to be water. We're going to try to convert utterly everything. We can't do it too much. Number of clumps 9320, and we're going to do space and other terrain types, very importantly, of 1. So we should be able to get the medium water there in that location. We're going to keep this seed. Hit generate. And now, as you can see, the shorefish are along the shore. They can be reached by villagers. They cannot spawn anywhere else in the pond because, well, the pond doesn't have regular water anywhere else. It's medium water elsewhere. All right, but let's say that that change of terrain is not available to us. Let us say that for whatever reason, we need this to just be water all the way through. So we need a different way of ensuring that the shorefish only spawn along the shore. And I will show you that object generation way now. So we're going to insert a placeholder object. We're going to come up here above the shorefish, and we're going to do insert rows above, and we're going to just copy one of these. It doesn't really matter. Shorefish. Okay. Paste it here. And we're going to keep this on-grid placeholder, but we're going to get rid of the shorefish second object. And we're going to do terrain to place on, and we're going to go beach. All right, and we're going to have temp min distance group placement of 1. So it's going to be staggered every other position along the beach. And actually, you know what? Let's, just so that you guys can see it, let's make it flag A for now. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tell these shorefish that they can't spawn unless they are within 1 tile of the flag A's. So we will pull these numbers back down. So the shorefish, we're gonna, it was referencing some cell that doesn't exist. We're gonna have it reference that cell. So row number 3, make sure that you are within 1 tile of whatever's in row number 3 when you generate these shorefish. That's what that's saying. Okay, so let's run that. And now imagine infinite possibilities where you have a network of objects that all have to spawn certain distances away from each other. I don't know what the object actor area numbers are, and I don't care. That's the beauty of it, is it figures out what numbers it needs based on the relationships that I want. I'm specifying the relationships in this spreadsheet. I'm not specifying actor area numbers. Which is, you know, kind of intuitive, but it's not the way that it's set up. The way that it's set up is you give an object an actor area with an actor area radius, and then the avoidance or the distance to place within that other objects have relative to that object depends on that object's actor area and not some other distance. So this is much more intuitive to me. Alright, so now keeping the seed, we're going to hit generate again. And as you can see, the shorefish are now next to the flags. So the flags are the placeholders, and the shorefish are being placed next to them. So I could, and I'm going to go directly into the script so that we don't have to necessarily wait for something like this, but where I see flag A, I'm just going to replace that with on grid. And keeping the same seed, hit generate, and because I don't want to look at those flags, right? They're ugly, and now they're all gone. So that, placeholders are, you could still do placeholders without the spreadsheet, but you have to keep track of a lot more things. You can add a lot of different placeholder objects with this spreadsheet and keep track of all of them. So it's definitely a big advantage for sure. So we're going to replace this with grid. And now let us add some deep fish. So we're just going to do regular fish. Actually, I'm going to have off-grid here for the fish. 647. And that placeholder is going to make sure that those fish spawn correctly. And the reason that I'm giving them off-grid instead of on-grid is because fish are a 2x2 object. And any object that has an area that is an even number, if you want to place it as a second object, you have to consider that the very center of that object is a line. It's not an open space, right? Like if I have a square for a single object, like a shorefish, the midpoint of that square is something that is not touching an edge. Whereas with fish, I can break that fish into 4 different squares, and the middle of it is an intersection. So because it's an intersection, I have to give it this different object instead. All right. And we're going to place this on water. And maybe we tell these fish, to avoid object, number 3, the flags. Let's tell them to avoid it by 3 instead. That's probably not going to be too many fish, but that's okay. These deep fish, you don't have to have too many of them. All right, and now I want to do one more thing. I want to show you how to add player assigned objects. So we're going to insert rows above, and we can come over here and we're going to grab, let's say, this gold as an example. Actually, no, we'll grab, I guess it doesn't matter what I grab, to be honest. It doesn't matter what I grab. Okay. I'm just going to change it later. I'm just changing everything. All right, gold. All right, so we're going to put boar here. And we're going to paste it again, and we're going to put, actually, we're going to put boar here. And we're going to put forage here. Okay. And let us proceed with numbering, because we are going to invoke these this time around. We're not just posturing. The subject type is going to be player assigned. You could do player assigned, player owned. We're going to do player assigned Gaia convertible. And we're going to copy this because we're going to have this here too. Oops. No, I don't want to be warned about that. So object quantity, let's say that there are, randomly there could be 3 or there could be 5. 3 or 5 berries. And of course, because of my OCD, everything has to look pretty, so there we go. 3 to 5. And group quantity, we don't want that. We just want one group, so we're just going to leave it empty, and it'll default to 1. Grouping type is tight. These are player assigned objects, so therefore no scaling at all. We're not going to require them to spawn in a certain type of terrain. Again, group quantity for the boars, we're going to have 2. So we're going to have 2 boars. Their grouping type doesn't matter. Scaling type, we're going to make sure that that's none. We want to make sure that players get the same number of boars regardless of the map size. And we don't need a temp min distance group placement for these forage bushes because we only have actually, you know, we're gonna make these deer patches instead, just to drive a point, just to prove a point. And we're gonna have 4 objects within this group. So we're going to have temp min distance group placement for these groups of deer, and we're going to have them separated by 12 tiles. And now kind of comes a fun part where we set up their relationship with the town center. So we're going to have them avoid whatever is in row 2, which is the town center. So it's A6 to get to row 2. And they need to avoid by 6, both of them. I guess we could have the forage, we'll have it avoid by maybe 8. So we'll do like 8 to 10. So it's going to be avoid the town center by 8, and it's going to be placed within 10. Alright, so that's good. And then we're going to copy this over for the deers. And the deers we're going to have be placed within 14 to 18, something like that. Okay, we got a bunch of new object data loaded in here. And we got some berries, we got some deer for the players. Let's go ahead and render that. So it's going to think about it for a little bit. Let's check and see if people have voted in the Alchemy League map contest. Oh yeah, look at that. We got 16 responses so far. Thank you guys so much for voting. People worked hard on the maps. So it always really helps when people take the time to tell people how well they did on the maps. And give them feedback. Alright, so this is all set up. It's all loaded. And now we're going to keep this seed again. We're going to hit generate. And we're looking for 3 things. We're looking for the fish. Okay, looks like we got some fish. I mean, we could potentially tell this fish to avoid a little bit better. It looks like it's not doing a great... Oh, no. That's not really doing a good job, huh? That fish is not doing a good job, so we got to fix that. And then the players here. Got a couple of deer patches. Got some berries, that's good. The players are pretty close together, so... You know, 14 to 18 could be too much, I think. So we might pull some of these resources to be closer in. But let's address these fish first. Oh! Well, dang, that's not right. That's a problem right there. I don't know if that was the problem. That's weird. Wait a second. Oh, the fish have no... Alright. Well, so the fish are spaced 3 from each other. Oops. Alright, well, we're going to copy this. And we're going to have the fish... Okay, so, moral of the story is we did not even try. We didn't even try to get the fish to avoid whatever's in row 3. And so now we are going to try. So we're going to tell the fish to avoid by 2. And we're going to pull in these a little bit. We're going to have this be like 6 maybe, and this be 8. And then we're going to avoid the town center by 8, and we're going to place within 10, let's say. And that should be it should make it a little bit clearer who owns what. And then we will regenerate this. So hopefully you guys aren't too lost without biscuits here to keep me honest. Make sure that we're doing everything correctly. We've been at this for over 3.5 hours now, actually. It's pretty involved. I'm sorry about, you know, some of the mistakes. There's just a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of things that you can do with this. Okay, so that should be all run and all set up. Alright, let's try this again. Let's make sure that the deep fish are avoiding the edges of the ponds, which they kind of are, I guess. I mean, this one could be a little bit further away. We could maybe think that through a little bit better. Or we could increase the resolution by having the flags spawn at every space, which I think is what we're going to do, just because it's not that much. But sometimes I bet that we have a flag right here and like a flag right here, and so this is kind of just creeping into that space because it can. So we can see that the deer are pretty close to the berries in some situations, and we don't really want that because that's an unfair advantage, right? Somebody has the deer right next to their berries, then you can use the mill that would be built there for both the deer and the berries, like this player has right here. This is obviously a big advantage over another player that maybe doesn't have that, like orange, for instance. So we're going to require that the deer avoid the berries as well, and we're going to increase the resolution by decreasing the spacings of those placeholders. So we'll come up here and we're going to decrease the spacing of these placeholders here, and that should be under temp min distance group placement, and we're just going to delete it. We're just going to delete it, and it's going to try to place it everywhere. And then when the deer are created, not only are they going to be avoiding the town center, but now we're going to add another argument here. We could really have them avoid as many things as we want, but we're going to create another argument, and we're going to have them avoid these forage bushes. And we're going to have them avoid the forage bushes by no fewer than 6 tiles. So we'll put a 6 here, and then hit enter. And then save. Alright, so let us run the object autoscriber again. And we're going to keep this same seed. Now some of you might be saying, why would you create player assigned objects this way? Why would you not just use min and max distance to players? Well, let me give you a history lesson. There was a time when neutral lands, min and max distance to players, was affected by neutral lands. And if you've got neutral lands, which you've got to have them in order to be creative and innovate and, you know, work some more map structure in and different possibilities. If you're going to have neutral lands like this, then you need a way for objects that players control to be able to spawn next to them. And if you use min and max distance to players, I believe it's min distance to players avoids these neutral lands. So, you know, everybody's stuff would either not spawn or it would all spawn in the same place. But if you use actor areas, then they don't care about the positions of these neutral lands. So recently they changed the game to remove that feature. Alright, so we're going to generate and see if we've fixed anything. We can see that these fish are centered a little bit better, as are these fish, as are these fish. So all deep fish are now guaranteed to be inaccessible to villagers, which is as it should be. In my personal opinion, this is still too many fish for a pond like this, but I mean, whatever. You know, it's fine. It's not a big deal. You know, blue is right over here, and orange is right over here. Blue could come over and maybe mess with this pond a little bit. It's not a big deal. Gray is all the way over here, and he's got the extra golds he's guarding, right? Let's take a look at and see if we can find any situation where the deer are too close to the berries. Nope. 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 Nopety nope. Yeah. So we're good to go on that. The deer are avoiding the berries properly. We're spawning all kinds of things, different things properly. I encourage those with access to, or you can even download these sheets. You know, these spreadsheets are available. You know, they're just stored in the same folder as the script that uses them, so anybody can download them. But folks that have helped out the Alchemy AoE community have access to the functions that can actually read and process the object data in these spreadsheets and convert it into code. All right, we haven't even gone in. We haven't even looked at the code in the script file yet. And yet we've been running all of these updates and generating these objects. So, we can go in and look at that now. You can see after begin objects autoscribe, there's some information in here. It's automatically setting up all this player information that we need. So the final thing that I just want to point out is that you can set up villagers in the same way. So we can do something like object number 9, and we'll do like a player controlled object, if you will, and we'll paste this here, and we're going to have villager. And I think we can just leave that as villager. And object type, we don't need a quantity. We don't need a group quantity. The object type is going to be player assigned, player controlled, or player owned. And let's see. I actually am not 100% sure how this is going to work. But we are going to maybe do 4 here, and we'll do like we'll place within 4, and we'll place without 3. Just like that. Okay. So, let's run that, and let's see if the villagers spawn properly. If not, we'll have to use this villager base F, which is basically just villager, but without as much baggage. But I'm kind of curious, so I'm going to test it. But you should be able to set player-assigned objects this way as well. But with villager, it's got this weird property where you don't actually specify the number of them. It just automatically generates 3. So if anybody's got any questions, I think we're kind of getting close to the end of the stream here. I think I've shown the majority of what I want to show. I mean, I hope that you understand the sheer number of possibilities, because you are no longer keeping score, right, of all these different actor areas and keep track of all these different numbers, and then you change something and you have to redo the actor areas entirely. Like, you can totally remake stuff with this, and as long as it's set up with the relationships in your spreadsheet, it's a pretty friendly user interface, I would say. So we hit generate, and let's see how many villagers it gives us. Okay, there they are. So the villagers, avoiding by 3 for most of them and placed within 4. Alright. So hopefully it all makes sense now, right? I mean, why would anybody generate this, this really... So let me recap. We set up an array of neutral lands that was unique. We randomized it so that it would be different every time. And you'd have to like explore and stuff. You couldn't just spend all your time pushing in deer. We set up a fair but unpredictable configuration of player starting positions to basically match the configuration that we have for the neutral lands. They were set up in a way to adapt to the positioning of these neutral lands such that games are more random and not so static. We then showed you how to position neutral objects with the object autoscriber code. We showed you how to set up player assigned objects as well with the object autoscriber code. And there are other some smaller specialty codes and other things that you can do with this, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. And hopefully this video is inspirational to some of you map makers out there. Hopefully it is a helpful reference. It's a helpful reference to the creators within our community that have helped us out a lot and have access to these codes. So I really appreciate you guys coming today and supporting the stream. I hope that it's informative. I hope that it shows you that, yes, we can have actually some really, really advanced maps in Age of Empires. And we can really, shift the standards, because if people understand that Alchemy League has maps that you can't get anywhere else, that I believe that will give us a competitive advantage over other communities. So it's really a big part of who we are. It's not everything that we are, the custom maps, but it's a big part of what we are. And it's all just like hard work and programming. So that's what I spent most of my time working on. While people were on the streams of big Age of Empires personalities, making friends and making and networking and everything like that, and seeing if they could get their creations used somewhere, I was programming to be able to set this kind of stuff up. And it's not even that great. This is just like the bare basics. This could become way better if we had a group of people that like were familiar with how all this stuff worked, and everybody worked together and we collaborated on it, and different people introduced different functions that could do different things. There's so much stuff. There's a lot of potential for this to grow. So I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Hopefully this looks like something that you want to be involved in. Thank you guys so much, and hopefully you will not be shy about sending me any questions that you might have. So have a great afternoon or a great evening, guys, wherever you are, and we'll catch you next time.